Chapter 1932. Oh! Duke Yuanzhua raised his eyebrows in surprise. No matter what the reason was, even if it was pure luck, it was rare for a mystic immortal to survive the blood tribulation of the spirit mine. In the cultivation world, talent and potential were important, but fate, opportunity, and luck were also important. There were no demonic geniuses who could cultivate to the peak just by relying on their own talent and aptitude without any fortuitous encounters, looking down on everyone. True immortal Mirror Moon said, according to what he said, it was pure luck that he survived. I brought him to Jewel City and let him participate in the hunting game because I want to see if his luck can help him survive until the end. After a pause, True immortal Mirror Moon said in a low voice, if his luck is really good, he might be able to help the Duke. Who are you talking about? Duke Yuanzhua asked. That green-robed cultivator. True immortal Mirror Moon pointed at a figure in the mirage mirror. At this moment, the bloody battle in the 10 Extremes prison had already broken out. The green-robed cultivator had already left the battlefield and stayed out of it. He was very conspicuous in the mirage mirror. Duke Yuanzhua chuckled and said, this person is quite smart. He left the battlefield early and didn't get involved. True immortal Mirror Moon pointed at another purple figure that was about to disappear into the forest and said, that's Tang Zi, who ascended after the 49 heavenly tribulations. After a while, through the mirage mirror, one could see that the green-robed cultivator was being targeted. The green-robed cultivator seemed to be afraid and didn't dare to fight. He also turned and entered the forest and left. Duke Yuanzhua shook his head and said, it's just luck. Without any trump cards, it's hard for him to stand out in this hunting game. The rule of the hunting game was the number of kills. Only the top 100 could leave the 10 Extremes prison alive. What Duke Yuanzhua meant was that even if the green-robed cultivator was lucky enough to survive until the end, he wouldn't be able to enter the hunting game without killing enough cultivators. That's true. His movement technique is quite good. True immortal Mirror Moon stared at the mirage mirror and said. Lu Yu smiled and said, Lord County Governor, this is the 10 Extremes prison. There are many dangers that these people can't imagine. Every step is dangerous. No matter how good one's movement technique is, it's useless. Not long after, Commandery Prince Yuanzhua suddenly said, that person is dying. Everyone turned to look at the green figure who was moving through a dense forest in the 10 Extremes prison. Absolute Thunder City's City Lord said, not far ahead of this child is the desolate swamp giant crocodile's territory. As long as this child enters that place, he will definitely awaken this giant crocodile. This giant desolate swamp crocodile is a Tier 3 Earth demon. This kid is dead for sure. Lu Yu chuckled. There were countless places like this in the 10 Absolutes prison. These demonic beasts from the upper realm had been captured by the exalted immortals present and intentionally imprisoned in the 10 Extremes prison. The 100,000 Xian immortals who entered the 10 Extremes prison would not only have to face the attacks of other Xian immortals, but they would also have to go through this sudden danger. This was one of the pleasures of the ascendant immortals. They loved to see the Xian immortals inside the prison tremble in fear and panic in front of these powerful demonic beasts that suddenly appeared. Seeing these Xian immortals struggle helplessly before being killed by the demonic beasts gave them a different kind of pleasure. At this moment, the battle there was getting more and more intense and bloody. Every moment, Xian immortals would die. The names of the people on the hunting list were constantly changing and replacing. The numbers behind them were constantly jumping and increasing. However, some of the exalted immortals in the City Lord's manor were looking at the green-robed cultivator. I didn't expect someone to encounter an earth demon so soon. This person looks so weak and bookish. I think he will faint on the spot when the giant desolate swamp crocodile appears. The exalted immortals laughed and waited for the green-robed cultivator to step into the death swamp on his own. Time trickled by. The smiles on the exalted immortals' faces gradually disappeared. Under normal circumstances, the green-robed cultivator would arrive at the death swamp very quickly according to his path. However, for some reason, when he was about to reach the edge of the death swamp, the green-robed cultivator stopped in his tracks and did not continue forward. Under the watchful eyes of the exalted immortals, The green-robed cultivator stopped in the same spot for a long time before he began to change his direction and walked in the other direction. Strange. Did he discover the death swamp? That's impossible. Although we call it the death swamp, the giant desolate swamp crocodile is dormant and the surface of the swamp looks no different from normal ground. How did he discover it? It's probably a coincidence. The bloody scene that the exalted immortals were looking forward to did not happen, which made them a little unhappy. True immortal Mirrormoon smiled and said, "Seems like he's really lucky." Beside her, Lu Yu pursed his lips and said disapprovingly, "This kind of danger is everywhere in the 10 Extremities prison. I don't believe that he'll be so lucky every time." 2 hours later, the bloody battle that broke out in the 10 Extremities prison at the beginning was gradually coming to an end. Although many cultivators had already escaped from the battlefield amidst the chaos, the battlefield was still filled with corpses and rivers of blood. It was an extremely tragic sight. At least 20,000 mystic immortals had died in this battle. However, the hunt had only just begun. As the flames of battle died down, the attention of the exalted immortals dispersed and landed on some of the mystic immortals who were the focus of attention, such as Li Tian, Jian Yu, and the others. Unlike the others, true immortal Mirrormoon's gaze was fixed on Su Zimo the entire time. Suddenly, Duke Yuanzhua asked, "How many is it now?" "This is the 4th one." True immortal Mirrormoon replied. Including the death swamp at the beginning, the green-robed cultivator had already avoided 4 similar places of danger along the way. The green-robed cultivator did not fight anyone the entire time. Instead, he wandered around the 10 Extremities prison. However, each time he was about to step into a dangerous place, he seemed to have sensed something in advance and would stop suddenly before changing directions to avoid it. If it happened once, it might be a coincidence. However, it happened 4 times in a row. That was something worth pondering about. Interesting. Duke Yuanzhua murmured softly as a glint appeared in his eyes. Most of his attention was focused on Su Zimo as well. At that moment, the tens of thousands of mystic immortals had already split up and were scattered all over the 10 Extremities prison. Through the mirage mirror, dozens of mystic immortals entered the death swamp by mistake without noticing and alerted the giant desolate swamp crocodile. The death swamp spun continuously, emitting a powerful suction force. The dozens of mystic immortals were trapped and could not break free at all. Immediately after, a gigantic crocodile that was a few thousand feet long appeared in the center of the whirlpool. Its eyes were ferocious and saliva dripped from the corner of its mouth. Its aura was terrifying. In less than 10 breaths, the dozens of mystic immortals were devoured by the giant desolate swamp crocodile. Similar situations were happening all over the 10 Extremities prison. Everyone inside was prey. Chapter 1933. Within the 10 Extremities prison. Su Zimo's gaze was cold and his expression was grim. It had been almost a day since he entered this place. Although he had left the battlefield long ago and avoided many cultivators intentionally, his journey was still filled with danger and danger. If he had not sensed danger in advance with his spirit perception, he would have been in great danger as well. He had witnessed a seemingly flat grassland turn into a muddy swamp with his own eyes. A gigantic crocodile charged out and devoured dozens of cultivators. He had also witnessed a few cultivators hiding in an ancient tree, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Unexpectedly, they touched a Xian beehive. Tens of thousands of dark wasps were startled. They swarmed over these cultivators and swept past them. In the blink of an eye, the few of them were killed by Acheron. They were pierced full of holes by the poisonous stingers of the Xian wasps and died miserably. Be it the swamp gigantic crocodile or the Xian wasps, they were all earth demons and were a cultivation realm higher than the mystic immortals of the 10 Extremities prison. A single Xian wasp was enough to massacre a group of mystic immortals. Who could defend against a swarm of thousands of Xian wasps? If Su Zimo was careless and fell into the swarm of Xian wasps, it would be difficult for him to escape alive. Danger was everywhere in the 10 Extremities prison. What made Su Zimo feel even more uneasy was that he was being watched at all times. Although he could not see what was going on outside through the gigantic eye in the heavens, He could sense that someone was watching him. All of a sudden, Su Zimo frowned slightly, as though he sensed something. Once again, he felt as though he was being watched. It was faintly discernible and was slightly different from the feeling of being watched from the heavens. If not for his sharp spirit perception, he would not have been able to detect the difference. Su Zimo did not think too much about it and continued to use his movement technique, circling around the forest without stopping. An hour later, Su Zimo stopped in his tracks once more. The feeling of being watched had yet to disappear. Someone was watching him. Instinctively, a purple-robed woman with an expressionless face appeared in Su Zimo's mind. Tangzi. Just now, he released heaven's feet, earth traversing golden light, and other supernatural powers. Then, he used the environment to constantly change his direction. Among those of the same level, almost no one could catch up with him. But after an hour, he still couldn't shake off the tail behind him. Perhaps only someone who was extremely good at assassination would be able to hide their aura almost perfectly and follow behind him like maggots. Su Zimo sneered inwardly. Who would have thought that this female assassin would actually choose to attack him? Su Zimo maintained his composure and continued forward. City Lord's mansion, in the main hall. Commandery Prince Yuanzhua stared at Su Zimo through the mirage mirror for an entire day. However, he still knew nothing about this person and could not see through him. Because from the beginning until the end, this person had never fought with others. There was a trace of impatience between Commandery Prince Yuanzhua's brows. His initial interest in Su Zimo had also gradually faded. If he doesn't have any powerful skills, it's useless to just hide here and there. Commandery Prince Yuanzhua yawned and was a little disappointed. He curled his lips and said, "This person is too boring." "That's right." Lu Yu smiled and said, "Your Highness, after a day of killing, among these servants, those who really have some skills have already stood out. Why do you still want to waste your time on these nobodies?" "Your Highness, please take a look. Just as I expected, that Li Tian is indeed first on the hunting list. The game hasn't ended yet." "It's still too early to judge the ranking now," the City Lord of Thunder City said. Commandery Prince Yuanzhua retracted his gaze from Su Zimo. Just as he was about to shift his attention, Mirror Moon True Immortal suddenly exclaimed, This person is being watched." "What?" Commandery Prince Yuanzhua asked. Mirror Moon True Immortal pointed at the mirage mirror and said, "Your Highness, please take a closer look. There's actually a figure hiding beside that ancient tree." Commandery Prince Yuanzhua squinted his eyes. As expected, in the void beside the ancient tree, there was a slight distortion. One could vaguely make out that it was a figure. But if one didn't look carefully, it would be very difficult to notice it. "It's the minor invisibility technique." Commandery Prince Yuanzhua nodded slightly and said. Mirror Moon True Immortal smiled and said, "If I'm not wrong, this person should be the girl who went through the 49 heavenly tribulations, Tangzi." Commandery Prince Yuanzhua's eyes lit up. This was because he had just realized that Tangzi had her eyes on Su Zimo. Mirror Moon True Immortal smiled and said, "Whether this Su Zimo is a cat or a dog, or a dragon or a snake, we'll find out soon enough." Commandery Prince Yuanzhua perked up and focused his attention on Su Zimo again. Lu Yu shook his head and said, "As bystanders, even we can't detect Tang Zi's tracks. This person is probably going to be killed without knowing why." Commandery Prince Yuanzhua and Mirror Moon True Immortal stared at Su Zimo for almost 2 hours. This time, even Mirror Moon True Immortal couldn't take it anymore and clenched her fists. Su Zimo had been running around in the 10 Extremes prison. His movement technique was extremely fast and he didn't have a destination. Tang Zi was following behind him. Even if she wanted to attack, she didn't have a chance. Chasing at such a high speed was very taxing on one's primordial spirit, chi, blood, and stamina. It was already her limit to maintain the minor invisibility technique, let alone attacking Su Zimo. During these 2 hours, Su Zimo didn't seem to have changed. It was as if he didn't notice anything. Tang Zi, on the other hand, had used up a lot of energy. There were a few times when she couldn't maintain the minor invisibility technique and was almost exposed. Commandery Prince Yuanzhua looked irritated. He gulped down a large cup of spirit tea and said, "What is this person doing running around in there? I really want to go in and kill him with one slap." Mirror Moon True Immortal took a deep breath and calmed herself down. She said, "Your Highness, please be patient. Let's wait and see." Right then, Su Zimo's speed was finally slowing down. Not long after, he stopped in front of a cave that was covered in blood and bones. A flying tiger-lion beast lived in this cave. It was a rank 9 earth deity. About 4 hours ago, a few hundred cultivators passed by this place and alerted the beast. The flying tiger-lion beast came out of the mountain and started a massacre. Hundreds of cultivators died in this place. After that, the beast left, leaving the cave empty. Through the mirage mirror, they saw Su Zimo pacing around the entrance of the cave. It seemed like he was carefully inspecting the cave. Not long after, Su Zimo walked into the cave and disappeared from the mirage mirror. This, Commandery Prince Yuanzhua and Mirror Moon True Immortal were stunned and looked at each other. Even though the mirage mirror was able to show everything that was happening in the Ten Extremities prison through the giant mirage eye in the sky. However, for a cave like this or a hidden place, there were many blind spots. It could not show everything. Since the mirage eye could not see, it could not show anything on the mirage mirror. In other words, Su Zimo had temporarily escaped the surveillance of the prefecture governor's mansion. Commandery Prince Yuanzhua was looking forward to seeing the battle between Tang Zi and Su Zimo. To think that Su Zimo would not be able to see anything the moment he entered the cave. Commandery Prince Yuanzhua opened his mouth. He was so angry that he almost fainted. 2K Reader Network. Chapter 1934. Don't worry, Your Highness. True Immortal Mirror Moon said, "This cave doesn't have a second exit. Now that Su Zimo has entered, there's no way out. He can't run around anymore. It's a good thing." The City Lord of Thunder City suddenly said, "Tang Zi went in as well. This time, there's nowhere for him to run. There's going to be a good show." Lu Yu chuckled. Duke Yuanzhua was displeased. He snorted. "What's the point of running? I want to know how strong he is. I want to see them fight. Now that they've entered the cave, what good show can I watch?" Duke Yuanzhua kept asking. Lu Yu smiled awkwardly, not daring to say anything. True Immortal Mirror Moon tried to calm him down. "Your Highness, please calm down. We just need to wait for the result. If Tang Zi comes out of this cave in the end, it means that Su Zimo is dead. A dead person has no value and is not worth Your Highness's attention. If Su Zimo can leave alive, it means that he's not weaker than Tang Zi. He's worth paying attention to." Duke Yuanzhua nodded and calmed down. 10 Extremes Prison. Tang Zi came to the cave of the flying Tigan beast and paused. Her face was expressionless, but she was hesitating. Among the 100,000 mystic immortals who entered the 10 Extremes prison, the only one she couldn't see through was the green-robed cultivator. This person, to her, was an unstable factor and a threat. If there was a chance to get rid of him, that would be for the best. But she had been chasing him all the way here. Keeping up with him was her limit. She didn't have a chance to attack. Originally, Tang Zi was very confident that with her methods, she would not be discovered by anyone. But now, looking at the cave in front of her, she hesitated. What's he doing in the cave? Could it be that he's found me and has been playing with me all this time? Tang Zi denied the thought as soon as it appeared. Impossible. Tang Zi thought to herself, everyone is being watched by the mirage eye. How can he tell that my aura is mixed in? Tang Zi took a deep breath and stopped thinking about it. Even so, she was still extremely cautious. Her master had once warned her that in the path of assassination, life and death could be decided in an instant, and she could not afford to make any mistakes. Tang Zi came to the side of the cave and lifted up an abstruse immortal corpse. She hid behind the corpse and controlled it to move freely. It was as if a corpse had come back to life. If one were to look at it from the front, they would not be able to see that there was a person hiding behind the corpse. Tang Zi once again used the lesser invisibility spell, and together with the corpse, she silently walked into the cave. The cave was dark and deep, without any light. Even with her eyesight, visibility was extremely limited. After walking for a while, Tang Zi stopped. Not far ahead, a blurry figure could be vaguely seen. It was the green-robed cultivator. At that moment, the green-robed cultivator had his back facing her and walked extremely slowly, as though he was taking a leisurely stroll. All of a sudden, the green-robed cultivator's figure flashed for a moment, as though he had disappeared from the spot. In such a dark space, it was easy to see things wrongly. A normal cultivator's reaction would definitely be to blink their eyes and observe their surroundings. However, Tang Zi cultivated the Tao of assassination and no longer relied on her 5 senses to sense the outside world. Instead, she relied more on an instinctive reaction to avoid danger. The moment the green-robed cultivator's figure flashed, Tang Zi's heart skipped a beat and her hairs stood on end. Not good. I've been discovered. Tang Zi didn't even think about it. She immediately controlled the corpse in front of her and turned it around. She curled her body and completely hid behind the corpse. Not only did she block his first attack, but she also used the corpse to release the minor theurgy, position swap, and escaped from his control again. Su Zimo finally understood why Tang Zi escaped towards the depths of the cave. This was just a facade that Tang Zi had purposely created. Her real goal was to leave through the entrance of the cave. At this moment, Tang Zi successfully lured Su Zimo into the depths of the cave. However, she used position swap to return to the position of the corpse, which was even closer to the entrance of the cave. The mental battle between the two of them in this short period of time was even more dangerous than a head-on battle. If the exalted immortals of the City Lord's residence saw this scene, they would be amazed by the battle talent and skills displayed by the two of them. 2K Reading Network. Chapter 1935. Su Zimo saw through Tang Zi's tracks and lured her into this dark cave. Then, he used the True Dragon's 9 flashes to attack first. Tang Zi lost the initiative and almost died. However, in the blink of an eye, she used her shocking reaction speed and mental game to regain the initiative and escape towards the cave entrance. Su Zimo stared at Tang Zi's back and his eyes shone brightly. His figure flickered again and disappeared on the spot. Third flash. After cultivating for more than 1,000 years in the mine outside Luguang City, other than improving his cultivation, he had also raised the True Dragon's 9 flashes to the 3rd level and could flash 3 times consecutively. Ever since Su Zimo started cultivating this secret technique, it was extremely rare for someone of the same level to force him to use the 2nd level. Not to mention, he had to flash 3 times consecutively to deal with one person. In the current situation, even if Su Zimo used the innate ability of the golden-winged Great Rock, he would not be able to suppress Tang Zi before she left the cave. If he let Tang Zi leave the cave, even if Su Zimo could chase after her, it would go against his original intention to do so under the surveillance of outsiders. Su Zimo had no choice but to activate the True Dragon's 9 flashes again and descend in front of Tang Zi. The moment he attacked, he used the Great Chaos Essence Palm. This seemingly white and delicate palm seemed to transform into a gigantic millstone and burst forth with an extremely terrifying crushing and twisting power. The entire cave became suffocating. However, Tang Zi's figure did not have any intention of stopping. Her cold face was still expressionless and her eyes were frighteningly calm. Su Zimo could not help but exclaim in his heart. Such a strong temperament and willpower was indeed extraordinary. This Tang Zi was the most terrifying assassin he had encountered in his cultivation so far. There was no one else. Suddenly, Tang Zi stretched out both hands and blocked Su Zimo's Great Chaos Essence Palm. Her palms flipped slightly and the movement was so subtle that it was almost undetectable. However, the moment Tang Zi's palms were about to collide with the Great Chaos Essence Palm, a dark dagger appeared in each of her hands. The 2 daggers did not emit any light and blended perfectly into the darkness. What was even more frightening was that neither Tang Zi herself nor the 2 daggers revealed any killing intent. It meant that if Su Zimo did not have spiritual senses, he would not even be able to sense the attack that was close to him after he closed his eyes. For an assassin to be able to cultivate to such a level, it was simply too terrifying. Not to mention, this was the first time Tang Zi had seen the 9 flashes of the True Dragon. She had already been caught off guard and lost the initiative. But in the blink of an eye, not only did this person avoid Su Zimo's 3 flashes, but he also quickly calmed down and launched a counterattack. His first move was such a fierce killing move. Su Zimo was amazed by such a strong temperament, such combat talent, and such adaptability. After ascending to the upper realm, this was the first person who made him feel threatened by someone of the same level as him. Normally speaking, with the current strength and toughness of Qinglian's true body, it was sufficient to go head-on against any natural profound rank magic treasure. However, Su Zimo did not dare to be careless against this terrifying assassin and the daggers in her hands. At that moment, it was already too late for him to summon the health suppression cauldron. Su Zimo changed his move at the last minute and dissipated the force of the Great Chaos Essence Palm. His arms were like the trunks of divine elephants and his palms seemed weak as he placed them on the dark dual daggers before exerting strength. It was a strength technique from the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness. Tang Zi felt a spinning, twisting, and vibrating power. Her hands could not hold onto the dark dual daggers and they were about to fly out of her hands. Even so, her eyes were still as calm as an ancient well. All of a sudden, Tang Zi opened her mouth slightly. Between her lips, an extremely ear-piercing sound suddenly erupted. It was like a sharp dagger that wanted to pierce through one's eardrums. It was a sound domain attack. The moment Tang Zi opened her mouth, Su Zimo had already sensed it and opened his mouth at the same time. A loud dragon roar burst forth from the depths of his throat. Roar! This voice was terrifying, dignified, and horrifying. It contained a supreme will that stood above all living beings in the world. The entire cave trembled as a result. Dragon Roar's secret skill. Without her Dragon Phoenix true body, it was difficult for Qinglian's true body to release a powerful sound domain's secret skill like the roar of the Dragon Phoenix. However, in Dragon Lake City, he had once made use of an Azure Dragon corpse to fight against various perfected immortals and comprehended the technique of the Azure Dragon's roar. Thereafter, he fused the roars of the Azure Dragon and Dragon Phoenix together with the Thunderclap kill that he had once cultivated to create a Dragon Roar secret skill that was suitable for Qinglian's true body. When that secret skill was released, it was even stronger and scarier than the roar of the Azure Dragon and Dragon Phoenix alone. The Dragon Roar secret skill was released and suppressed Tang Zi's sound domain's secret skill with ease, shattering it into pieces. The two of them were extremely close. At this distance, Tang Zi suffered the most impact. Tang Zi shuddered slightly and was slightly dazed. The power in her palms dissipated slightly as well. Right then, Su Zimo channeled strength in his palms and snatched the 2 black daggers. Crossing his hands, he placed them on Tang Zi's neck. At the same time, Tang Zi had also recovered from Su Zimo's Dragon Roar secret skill. Unfortunately, it was too late. With 2 daggers at her neck, she knew very well that although the green-robed cultivator before her looked frail, he was definitely someone who was decisive in killing. If she made any sudden movements, blood would definitely splatter on the spot. Although the entire process seemed slow, it took less than 2 to 3 breaths. The two of them exchanged blows, tested each other and fought for a few rounds. Both of them had the upper hand and even used sound domain secret skills. In the end, Su Zimo came out on top. Everything was settled. Su Zimo looked at the woman before him and heaved a sigh of relief. Although it was a short exchange, this female assassin had refreshed his understanding of her. She was even more troublesome than he had imagined. At such a close distance, his Dragon Roar secret skill could even kill cultivators of the same cultivation realm right away. As for the female assassin, she recovered in the blink of an eye. However, her face was slightly pale. Without a strong physique and bloodline, there was no way one could withstand his Dragon Roar secret skill. Given this woman's physique, even if she did not use any assassination methods, not many mystic immortals would be able to defend against her head-on. Even though she was already in Su Zimo's hands and her life was no longer in her control, Tang Zi's expression did not change at all and her gaze was calm. It was only at this moment that Su Zimo felt a sharp pain in his palm. Blood flowed down his palm slowly. What sharp daggers? Su Zimo was secretly shocked. Just now, he used a technique from the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness to grab the black daggers, but he was still injured by them. He could imagine that if he had not changed his move, his palm would have been pierced by the black daggers with ease. Su Zimo's gaze flickered. A thin wound had already appeared on Tang Zi's neck and fresh blood flowed down her snow-white skin slowly. He did not use any strength at all, but the black daggers had already cut Tang Zi's neck. However, Tang Zi was still expressionless, as though she could not feel it. It was as though nothing in this world could move her. In fact, it was even life and death. Chapter 1936. The City Lord's Mansion. Just now, the cave seems to be shaking? True Immortal Mirror Moon frowned slightly, not daring to confirm. Just now, it was shaking because of Su Zimo's Dragon Roar secret technique. Although the exalted immortals of the City Lord's Mansion could see what was happening inside the Ten Extremities prison, they could not hear anything from inside. True Immortal Mirror Moon also did not know that in this short period of time, the two people in the cave had already fought, and the result had been decided. Duke Yuanzhou waved his hand and said dispiritedly, "Keep an eye on it. I'll go check on the others. Let me know if there's anything." Since he could not see what was happening inside the cave, it was naturally boring to just stare at the cave entrance. 10 Extremities Prison. Su Zimo held the dual dark daggers with both hands and placed them on Tang Zi's neck. He did not withdraw them. He knew very well what this female assassin was capable of. If he let his guard down even for a moment, he might be attacked by this woman. "Why are you looking for me?" Su Zimo asked. Tang Zi was expressionless and did not say a word. Su Zimo suddenly smiled. Judging from this female assassin's posture, she did not intend to speak at all. Even with the daggers on her neck, she was not afraid at all. She did not even look at him. "How about this?" Su Zimo said in a low voice. "Let's make a deal. I can let you go, but you have to answer my questions." Tang Zi seemed to be a little tempted. She glanced at Su Zimo, but still did not say a word. Su Zimo smiled and said, "Of course, if it involves any secrets that you can't speak of, you can choose not to. Also, if I promise to let you go, I will not go back on my words." After that, Su Zimo put away the dual dark daggers and took a few steps back to show his sincerity. This time, Tang Zi's heart surged with a trace of surprise. However, her expression was still very calm. No one could see the change in her heart. The reason why she noticed Su Zimo was firstly because she could not see through him. To her, this was a variable. She had another purpose for coming here this time, so she did not want this variable to affect her plan. Secondly, she had followed him all the way and was increasingly curious about Su Zimo. Apart from her, all the Xian immortals who entered the Ten Extremities prison had the same goal, which was to kill as many people as possible and squeeze into the hunting list. As for this person, he wandered around the entire day, not killing a single person. The strangest thing was that this person seemed to be intentionally avoiding other people. He could even sense danger in advance and avoid the habitats of some earth demons. If it was outside, Tang Zi would have enough patience to follow Su Zimo, even if it was for a year or 10 years. She had once tried to assassinate an earth immortal. In order to ensure that nothing went wrong, she had waited patiently for hundreds of years before making her move. It was a one-hit kill. If she didn't have such a temperament, she wouldn't have grown to where she was today. However, in the Ten Extremes prison, she did not have the time to observe the man's habits, cultivation, strength, and methods. She had more important things to do. And the simplest way was to kill this variable. That was why the confrontation in the cave just now happened. But this time, Tang Zi had suffered quite a bit of damage. She had never been defeated by someone of the same level since she started cultivating. Even in a head-on confrontation, no one was a match for her. If she used her various assassination methods and secret techniques, she could even kill an earth immortal. However, this time, in the Ten Extremes prison, a seemingly weak scholar had subdued her in just a few breaths' time. Who was this person? What was the movement technique that this person used that was close to teleportation? Why was this person's sound domain's secret technique so similar to a dragon's roar? How could it unleash such terrifying power and will? What kind of body and bloodline does this person have? How could he subdue me? In fact, Tang Zi was even more confused. She just didn't show it. Now, after hearing Su Zimo's suggestion, Tang Zi was tempted. But she remained calm and said, I also want to ask you some questions. Of course, if it's related to secrets, you can choose not to tell me. Su Zimo nodded. Why didn't you fight anyone when you entered the 10 Extremities prison? Tang Zi asked before Su Zimo could ask. She thought that with Su Zimo's abilities, it wouldn't be difficult for him to enter the hunting list, or even the top 10. We're all people who ascended from the lower worlds. We don't have any deep grudges against each other, so I didn't want to fight. Su Zimo paused and said, Besides, it wasn't my own intention to enter the 10 Extremities prison. I was chosen and brought here. Tang Zi shook her head and said, Everyone has no choice in the 10 Extremities prison. It's impossible for you to stay out of it. Maybe, Su Zimo said calmly, but I don't want to be manipulated by others. Back then, he started cultivating to change his fate. Later, because of Su Hong's death, the people of the Yen Kingdom lost their homes and became homeless. He even swore to change the fate of the world. He wanted to control his own fate. He wouldn't be manipulated, or even toyed with by others. After Su Zimo entered the 10 Extremities prison, he had been looking for a chance to break free from the invisible chains on him. He seemed to be running around randomly, but his real goal was to explore the environment, terrain, and even the secrets of the prison. This Thunder City and the 10 Extremities prison were strange. There might be some secrets hidden here. I don't want to be manipulated by others. Tang Zi murmured and looked at Su Zimo deeply. Over the years, countless mystic immortals from the lower worlds had entered the 10 Extremities prison, but none of them could say that. Perhaps some resisted, or perhaps some were unwilling, but in the end, they didn't leave any traces. Tang Zi said, Even if you don't want to, it won't change anything. If you want to leave the 10 Extremities prison alive, the only way is to kill your way into the hunting list. There's no other way. Su Zimo suddenly asked, What happens to the cultivators who survive to the end but don't make it into the hunting list? Tang Zi said, There are many earth demons in the 10 Extremities prison. Because of the isolation of essence chi, they can't cultivate, so they usually hibernate. And now, 100,000 mystic immortals have entered. They've been alerted. When all the earth demons in the 10 Extremities prison wake up, none of the remaining mystic immortals will survive. Su Zimo's expression was cold. He didn't ask, but he could guess that the earth demons must have been deliberately left behind by the exalted immortals outside. It wasn't enough to let 100,000 mystic immortals kill each other. They had to face the danger of being hunted down and devoured by the earth demons at any time. What's with that eye in the sky? Su Zimo asked again. That's the Mirage Eye, Tang Zi said. There's a Mirage mirror in the City Lord's mansion outside. Through the Mirage Eye, it shows everything in the 10 Extremities prison for the City Lords and exalted immortals to see. This wasn't a secret, so Tang Zi didn't hide it and told him the truth. The Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 1937. Admire? What? Hee. Su Zimo grinned. His face darkened, and his eyes turned cold. These exalted immortals could easily gather them and put them in a space like a herd of livestock. They could kill as they pleased. This was not a hunting party, nor was it a fair opportunity. This was a hunting game prepared by the exalted immortals. The Xian immortals in the 10 Extremities prison were only the prey of the exalted immortals. The real hunters were the city lords and exalted immortals outside. Su Zimo believed that even if the 100 Xian immortals on the hunting list could leave the 10 Extremities prison alive, they would not be able to make a name for themselves. In the dark cave, Tang Zi saw Su Zimo smile. Her heart skipped a beat, and she shuddered. Just now, she was not afraid, even if her life was hanging by a thread. But at this moment, she suddenly felt that Su Zimo's eyes were a little scary. How often is this hunting party held? Su Zimo asked. Tang Zi said, Normally, it's held once every 10,000 years. But only a few thousand years have passed since the last hunting party. I don't know why it was brought forward. Su Zimo thought for a moment, and suddenly asked, "Is there any other purpose for this hunting party other than for the exalted immortals to enjoy?" Tang Zi's expression changed slightly, but she did not answer. Su Zimo realized that this might be some secret. Even if he asked, he would not get any answers. Su Zimo changed the topic. "I walked around the 10 Extremities prison, and I found a large area in the center of the prison. It's a little strange. There are no living creatures around. Even the earth demons in the prison are avoiding it. What's going on there?" That area was more like a forbidden area. Su Zimo could feel a strong sense of danger. It was even more dangerous than the earth demons. So he only looked from afar and did not get close. That's the center of the 10 Extremities prison. It's also the forbidden area. Tang Zi said, "In that area, there are 10 world-shaking immortal formations that seal off the sky and the land. Among them, the Howling Wind Formation, the Freezing Ice Formation, the Golden Light Formation, the Blood Transformation Formation, the Raging Flame Formation, the Desolation Formation, the Flood Formation, and the Red Veil Formation. 8 immortal formations are located in 8 directions, sealing off the surroundings. Finally, the Heaven Annihilation Formation and the Earth Scorching Formations sealed the 2 exits of heaven and earth, forming a prison that sealed the heaven and earth. No one could enter and no one could come out. Not to mention earth demons, even if a heavenly demon were to barge into the formation, they would not last more than a few breaths before their souls would scatter and their Tao would vanish. The meaning of the 10 extremes is to sever all paths of life, and there is no chance of survival." Su Zimo was shocked when he heard that. It turned out that the 10 extremes prison came about because of these 10 formations. Sealing heaven and earth, certain death. This 10 extremes formation is too vicious. Just who is it suppressing? Su Zimo asked in a deep voice. Tang Zi did not speak. Just when Su Zimo thought that Tang Zi would not speak, she suddenly said, "About a few 100,000 years ago, a person ascended from the lower world. This person's talent was unparalleled in the world. Although he was from the lower world, it only took him 2,000 years to break through and become an earth immortal. He was ranked first on the earth roll. 6,000 years later, he became a heaven immortal and became one of the youngest heaven immortals in the divine firmament celestial realm. Then, during the divine firmament immortal gathering, he won the first place on the heaven roll and became the first heaven immortal in the divine firmament celestial realm. He became famous. Although Su Zimo did not know what the heaven roll and earth roll were, he was fascinated by the story. As a person from the lower world, if he wanted to cultivate in the upper world and reach this level, he must have gone through many dangers and difficulties. It was not easy for this person to achieve such achievements. Tang Zi continued, "If he can become the first place on the heaven and earth rolls, he will be able to become a true immortal." This person was also highly regarded by the divine firmament celestial emperor and was accepted as a true disciple. This person was from the lower world, but he was accepted as a disciple by the divine firmament celestial emperor. This showed how powerful he was. Tang Zi paused for a while and said, "During the meeting of the divine firmament celestial realm, this person defeated all the geniuses from the other celestial realms. He was invincible among perfected immortals and took the first place on the true immortal roll. He was given the title of Peerless Immortal. Peerless Immortal was the highest. There was no one else above him. He was the Peerless Immortal." Even though Tang Zi described it calmly and without any fluctuations in her emotions, this experience still made one's blood boil and scalp tingle. Could it be that the Peerless Immortal is imprisoned in the 10 extreme prison? Su Zimo could not help but ask. Tang Zi did not say a word. It was a silent admission. Su Zimo shook his head slightly. It was hard to imagine how such a genius could fall from the altar and end up like this. How could this be? Su Zimo frowned and asked. Tang Zi said, "This peerless immortal was born in the lower world, so he had a fierce conflict with the native exalted immortals in the upper world. This peerless immortal thought that the creatures in the lower world and the upper world should be treated equally in the divine firmament celestial realm. He wanted to give the creatures in the lower world enough cultivation resources so that those who ascended from the lower world could have a relatively fair chance. He made the decision to popularize the soul-condensing pill and the greater soul-condensing pill. He wanted to build a celestial kingdom where the creatures in the lower world could cultivate and live without being oppressed by other exalted immortals. When he heard that, Su Zimo's heart was filled with respect. If it was just the title of peerless immortal, it was nothing. However, it was rare to have such a broad mind and magnanimity. Tang Zi continued, back then, the Dajin celestial kingdom did not exist, and there were no celestial kings ruling this land. Several celestial kings under the Nine Heavens Immortal Emperor competed for the title of king here. In the end, only 2 people were left. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat, and he said, the current Dajin celestial king is one of them. Tang Zi nodded and said, the other one is this peerless immortal. However, he hadn't become a celestial king yet. He was qualified because everyone knew that with his talent, once he became a celestial king, he would definitely be a top celestial king. This peerless immortal wanted to build his own celestial kingdom to protect the creatures in the lower world. Therefore, he forcefully broke through and wanted to become a celestial king as soon as possible so that he could compete with King Jin. Something happened during this period? Su Zimo narrowed his eyes slightly. Tang Zi said, at a critical juncture of his secluded cultivation, he was plotted against and failed to break through. Su Zimo opened his mouth slightly, stunned on the spot. It was a short sentence, but behind it was endless sadness, helplessness, despair, and unwillingness. There was also an unimaginable bloody storm. King Jin did it? A cold light flashed in Su Zimo's eyes. In the end, the biggest beneficiary of this matter was the current Dajin celestial king. The most likely possibility was that the Dajin celestial king felt threatened, so he killed this threat in advance. It wasn't King Jin who did it, Tang Zi said. The person who did it has a status in the Dajin celestial kingdom. He's only second to one person and above everyone else. This person is the Heavenly Execution King, who single-handedly created the Executioner Guards. Eternal Sacred King, Eternal Sacred King. Chapter 1938. The Heavenly Punishment Monarch. Su Zimo sneered. The ultimate beneficiary of this matter was Monarch Jin. The Heavenly Punishment Monarch didn't receive any punishment for plotting against the person in prison. Instead, he was highly regarded by Monarch Jin. It would be difficult for Monarch Jin to clear his name. Now that he heard such a shocking secret, Su Zimo was shocked and confused. Is the 10-terminal formation really so powerful that it can trap a true immortal? Su Zimo frowned and asked, even if this expert was plotted against and failed to break through, he's still a true immortal. As long as his cultivation is still there and his Tao isn't destroyed. At this point, Su Zimo's expression changed as if he realized something and couldn't continue. Tang Zi nodded and said, you guessed right. When this person was breaking through, he was plotted against by the Heavenly Punishment Monarch and was severely injured. The Heavenly Punishment Monarch was worried that this person would seek revenge after recovering from his injuries, so he shattered this person's Tao fruit. Su Zimo was shocked. He had already come into contact with Tao fruits in the lower world through Dayu. Su Zimo didn't know much about Tao fruits. He only knew that this Tao fruit was the foundation and essence of a true immortal. The shattering of the Tao fruit meant that one's Tao was destroyed. There was no possibility of cultivating again in the future. This was too great a blow to a cultivator. It was considered a good ending if one couldn't recover from the setback and became mediocre. If one's Tao heart collapsed and their nascent spirit weakened, they wouldn't be able to live for long. How long has this senior been imprisoned? Su Zimo asked. A few 100,000 years, Tang Zi said. Tang Zi said indifferently. This city and the 10 Extremes prison were all built for him. A thought flashed through Su Zimo's mind. However, just now the news he heard was too shocking, so he didn't think too much about it. A few 100,000 years. After being imprisoned here and losing his Tao fruit, this person is probably long dead. Su Zimo shook his head slightly. After being imprisoned for hundreds of thousands of years, even a normal person wouldn't be able to withstand such a blow, let alone losing his Tao fruit. His future was dark, and he was surrounded by boundless loneliness and humiliation at all times. This pain was unimaginable. Perhaps. Tang Zi replied calmly. Su Zimo said angrily, the heavenly punishment monarch has already crippled this person's Tao fruit. And imprisoned him here, never to be free. He's too vicious. Tang Zi didn't say anything, but in the depths of her eyes, there was a trace of sadness that was hard to detect, but it quickly disappeared. Su Zimo suddenly thought of the answer to a question. That was the question he had asked Tang Zi earlier, but she didn't answer. The gathering of the hunt had been held for so many years. Other than providing entertainment for the exalted immortals outside, what other purpose was there? When he found out about this secret from hundreds of thousands of years ago, Su Zimo realized that there was an even more important purpose to this hunt. It was to humiliate the peerless true immortal and destroy his Tao heart. Since you want to establish an immortal kingdom to protect the people of the lower realms, I'll let you witness the people of the lower realms killing one another in the 10 Extremities prison. I'll let you witness how the people of the lower realms are like animals in captivity. Their fates are at our mercy, and you can't do anything about it. I'll let you suffer the torture in your heart for the rest of your life. I'll let your beliefs and Tao heart crumble. The 10 Extremities formation wasn't the only thing imprisoning the peerless true immortal, but also the blood and corpses of the cultivators of the lower realms that had died here over the past hundreds of thousands of years. It was 10,000 times more vicious than killing someone or imprisoning them for hundreds of thousands of years. Just the thought of it was enough to send chills down his spine. Tang Zi said, as a matter of fact, Thunder City, the 10 Extremities prison, and the hunt all have their own reasons. It's to intimidate all the cultivators of the lower realms. If anyone has the same idea and wants to establish an immortal kingdom for the people of the lower realms, they'll end up like the peerless true immortal. The Heavenly Punishment King is telling the world that anyone who follows the peerless true immortal's footsteps will die. Tang Zi said, the facts prove that the Heavenly Punishment King succeeded. For hundreds of thousands of years, no one in the Divine Clouds continent has dared to speak up for the people of the lower realms. When the peerless true immortal failed, the path was cut off. Su Zimo suddenly said, the path is not cut off. Tang Zi glanced at him. Su Zimo said slowly, I'll continue on this path. Even if the path is cut off, I can continue it. If you can't continue it, the path ahead is cut off. If you take half a step forward, you'll fall into a bottomless abyss. Tang Zi shook her head. Su Zimo said, even if the path ahead is a bottomless abyss, I'm fearless. Even if I fall to my death, I'll have no regrets. Tang Zi's heart skipped a beat as she looked at Su Zimo in disbelief. At that moment, Su Zimo's tone was firm and his gaze was resolute. The brilliance in his eyes seemed to be brighter than the stars and brighter than the sun and moon. Su Zimo felt an intense sense of injustice. Back then, when he was in Tianhuang mainland, he saw that the people of the world could not cultivate and were bullied by cultivators and slaughtered by demons. That was the reason why he felt so indignant. At that time, he made a huge vow to establish the Wu Dao and bring prosperity to the people. This time, Su Zimo wanted to change the fates of the people of the lower realms. That was because he came from the lower realms. Monkey, Linghu, Qing Qing, Night Spirit, Little Fox, and the Golden Lion were his brothers who came from the lower realms as well. Kitsune and Carefree were his two disciples who came from the lower realms as well. All of his old friends ascended from the lower realms. He could empathize with the bullying, injustice, and suffering of the living beings of the lower realms. After hearing about the experiences of this supreme perfected immortal, the sense of injustice surged in Su Zimo's chest and could no longer be suppressed. If there's injustice in my heart, I'll get rid of it. I'm Araki Takashi from the lower realms. I'll create a pure land for the living beings of the lower realms. Su Zimo gripped his fists and said slowly, in the future, I'll let all living beings of the upper realms know the name of Araki Takashi. Why? Tang Zi was indignant and wanted to say something to deal a blow to Su Zimo. However, at that moment, Su Zimo's heroic spirit gave her a strange and indescribable feeling. For a moment, she froze on the spot and merely looked at Su Zimo in a daze. After a moment, she seemed to have realized something and turned around hurriedly, whispering, "You're far from it." Su Zimo knew in his heart that the path to the upper realm would be even more difficult and dangerous. This person in prison was once so talented. However, in the end, he was reduced to such an outcome where he was better off dead. As Tang Zi said, he was far from it. In the cave, there was a long silence. Su Zimo and Tang Zi stood opposite each other. However, both of them had their own thoughts and neither of them spoke. Sigh. Right then, Su Zimo suddenly heard a sigh. The sigh was ancient and distant, as if it had descended from the long river of time. It carried a deep emotion that moved one. Chapter 1939. The sigh was extremely sudden in the quiet cave. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. He tensed up and was on guard. The sigh was clearly from a man and not Tang Zi. Could it be that there was someone else in the cave? He and Tang Zi had conversed in the cave for so long, but they did not discover the existence of this person? Su Zimo looked at Tang Zi. The latter's expression was calm without any abnormalities, as though she did not hear the sigh at all. Su Zimo spread out his spirit consciousness and searched the cave carefully, but to no avail. The sigh did not seem to have come from the cave. It sounded more like it was in his mind. "Stop searching. I'm not there." The old and mysterious voice sounded in Su Zimo's mind again. "Who are you?" Su Zimo did not speak and merely asked with his spirit consciousness. "Who am I? Who am I?" The mysterious person murmured softly but did not answer. He merely sighed emotionally. "After so many years, I didn't expect to see someone from Tianhuang mainland here." Su Zimo was shocked. He had ascended to the upper world for more than 1,000 years and had never mentioned which small world he came from or Tianhuang mainland to anyone. And this mysterious person actually exposed his origin with a single sentence. "You?" Instantly, countless questions surged in Su Zimo's mind. He could not react in time and did not know where to start. "You don't have to be nervous." The mysterious person said, "I can recognize your background because I'm also from Tianhuang mainland." Su Zimo was dumbfounded. He did not expect to meet someone from Tianhuang mainland here. Furthermore, this mysterious person's methods seemed to have far surpassed the scope of a mystic immortal. There was a high chance that he was a senior from Tianhuang mainland who ascended before him. Of course, even so, Su Zimo was still extremely cautious and did not believe him easily. "Even if you're from Tianhuang mainland, how did you recognize that I'm from Tianhuang mainland?" Su Zimo asked. The mysterious man said, "Just now you are using the Great Chaos Palm. It was created by the primitive emperor. He has his own legacy sect in Tianhuang called the Hunyuan sect. I wonder if it's still around." Upon hearing this, Su Zimo no longer had any doubts in his heart. To be able to accurately recount these old stories, they must be from Heaven Wasteland. At this moment, the mysterious man continued, "Just now, I sensed a familiar aura from the sound domain secret technique you used. You should have cultivated a cultivation technique, the Void Thunder technique." Su Zimo was even more surprised. His Dragon Roar secret art had indeed incorporated some of the profound mysteries of the Thunderclap kill. Who would have thought that this mysterious person would be able to deduce the cultivation method he was cultivating with just a secret technique? While Su Zimo was immersed in his astonishment, the mysterious man continued, "This Void Thunder technique is the succession I left behind in Tianhuang before I ascended." Su Zimo's expression changed starkly as he bolted upright and exclaimed in a hoarse voice, "You are..." Sensing Su Zimo's strange movements, Tang Zi was a little nervous as well. Retreating to distance herself, she glared at Su Zimo fixedly and asked, "What are you doing?" Realizing that he had lost his composure, Su Zimo hurriedly took a deep breath to compose himself. He could not be blamed for that. Just now's words were truly too shocking for him. He had not expected to meet someone from Tianhuang mainland here. More than that, he did not expect that this person from Tianhuang mainland was from the same era as the Eternal Human Emperor, the legendary Thunder Emperor who had ascended to the upper world a long time ago. Suddenly, Su Zimo thought of a possibility and asked Tang Zi, "Is the person trapped in the 10-terminal formation proficient in thunder techniques?" "That's right," Tang Zi replied. At this moment, Many things became clearer before Su Zimo's eyes. Just now, the person in prison that Tang Zi was referring to, the supreme perfected immortal, was the Thunder Emperor of Tianhuang mainland. The reason why the so-called Thunder Extreme City severed the power of thunder was to suppress the Thunder Emperor as well. With a stern expression, Su Zimo bowed deeply in the direction of the 10-terminal formation. "What are you doing?" Tang Zi asked in confusion when she saw Su Zimo's strange behavior. Su Zimo did not explain. His bow was not only because he cultivated the Void Thunder Manual or because the Thunder Emperor once fought for the human race in the ancient era of Tianhuang mainland. It was also because of the Thunder Emperor's actions in the upper world and his magnanimity and boldness. "Just now, you can say those words." "Very good," as expected of someone from Tianhuang mainland. The Thunder Emperor's voice sounded in Su Zimo's mind. "However, it's best that you don't continue down this path. This path is way too difficult. Throughout history, countless living beings of the lower world have tried, but all of them ended in failure. In fact, many of them disappeared in the long river of time without leaving a single trace." Su Zimo was silent. He understood that the Thunder Emperor's advice was out of goodwill. No one knew the difficulty of this path better than the Thunder Emperor. That was the reason why he could say those words. The Thunder Emperor could tell that Su Zimo was a rare genius. However, he had roamed the upper world for many years and had seen all sorts of geniuses. The reason why he advised Su Zimo to turn back and not step onto this path was because he did not want to see this person from Tianhuang mainland die on this path filled with corpses due to a moment of passion. However, Su Zimo had heard of the Thunder Emperor's name, but the Thunder Emperor did not know about Su Zimo. He did not know Su Zimo, nor did he know about Su Zimo's temperament. He also did not know that Su Zimo had once established the Wu Dao in the lower world and brought prosperity to the people. He was known as the Eternal Wu Huang, and his achievements had even surpassed the human emperor. Su Zimo did not explain. The Thunder Emperor continued, "Other than me, there was also Lin Zhan who ascended from Tianhuang mainland. He ascended to the Qingshao celestial realm and became a celestial king before me. He was highly regarded by the Qingshao celestial emperor and was given the title of Battle King. All these years, I have been imprisoned here and have no news of him. However, I believe that with his strength, he will definitely be able to conquer the Qingshao celestial realm and establish a celestial kingdom. Although Brother Lin and I are not in the same celestial realm, we have the same ideals and beliefs. If you leave this place and have the chance to go to the Qingshao celestial realm, you might as well look for him. If he knows that you are from Tianhuang mainland, he will definitely be extremely happy." At this point, the Thunder Emperor paused for a moment and said, "By the way, you might not know who Lin Zhan is, but you definitely know his name in Tianhuang mainland. The Eternal Human Emperor is him." Su Zimo was shocked. This was the first time he knew the name of the Eternal Human Emperor. Since he ascended to the upper world, this was also the first time he knew some information about the Eternal Human Emperor. Su Zimo muttered softly in his heart, "I wonder how Senior Human Emperor is now." "What happened?" The Thunder Emperor understood the meaning behind Su Zimo's words and asked. Su Zimo did not hide anything and simply recounted the battle at the Enigma Palace and the Eternal Human Emperor's return to Tianhuang mainland. At that time, although the Eternal Human Emperor had returned to the upper world, he was clearly severely injured. It's too dangerous to break the realm barrier and forcefully descend to the lower world. The Thunder Emperor said, "If it's light, one's cultivation will be destroyed. If it's serious, one might even die. It's a pity that I am trapped here and can't help much." 2K Reading Network. Chapter 1940. Senior Thunder Emperor, are there any flaws in this 10-terminal formation? I know a little about the Tao of formations and can see if I can dispel the formation and rescue you. Su Zimo asked. There's no need, the Thunder Emperor sighed gently. This 10-terminal formation has a great background and is terrifyingly powerful. There was once a perfected immortal formation grandmaster who came to dispel the formation in an attempt to rescue me. However, he died in this formation. Su Zimo remained silent. In truth, He knew very well that his attainments in formations were extremely high in Tianhuang mainland. However, his understanding of formations was way too shallow against the many immortal formations of the upper world. My spirit consciousness can't hold on for much longer. The Thunder Emperor's voice sounded once more, but it was clearly much weaker than before. The Thunder Emperor had been imprisoned for hundreds of thousands of years, and his Tao fruit was shattered. However, it was extremely taxing for him to be able to release his spirit consciousness to communicate with Su Zimo, who was outside the 10-terminal formation. He could not hold on for much longer. The Thunder Emperor continued, "After being trapped here for hundreds of thousands of years, I've reorganized and summarized the Void Thunder Manual and gained some new insights. I'll impart the complete Void Thunder Manual to you. I hope that this cultivation technique will be of help to you." Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. The Thunder Emperor relied on the Void Thunder Manual to fight his way through and look down on everyone before eventually becoming a supreme perfected immortal. It was obvious how powerful that cultivation technique was. Furthermore, the Thunder Emperor had gained even more insights after hundreds of thousands of years. The fact that the Void Thunder Manual can be passed down to someone from Tianhuang mainland is a good thing. I can die with no regrets. Su Zimo was about to speak. Suddenly, the Thunder Emperor's voice changed and a series of obscure words echoed in Su Zimo's mind. Every single word contained a firm and ferocious aura that was awe-inspiring and dignified. In Su Zimo's mind, those words seemed to have transformed into lightning talismans that shone with electric sparks. After some time, the entire Void Thunder technique was imprinted in Su Zimo's mind. This cultivation method was vast, profound, and unfathomable. For a moment, Su Zimo was unable to comprehend its essence. At that moment, the Thunder Emperor's voice grew weaker and weaker. "I'll try my best to tell you some of my insights. You can remember as much as you can." The Lightning Emperor imparted everything he knew about the Void Lightning Manual to him. Although Su Zimo had cultivated the Void Thunder Manual, it was incomplete. Moreover, that was only a lower realm lightning divine ability. At this moment, with the help of the Thunder Emperor, the door to the Tao of Thunder and Lightning was slowly opened to Su Zimo, giving him the opportunity to peek into the mysteries within. The Thunder Emperor's voice gradually weakened until it completely disappeared. Of course, the Thunder Emperor hadn't finished explaining his understanding of the Void Lightning technique. But even so, just now, the understanding of the Tao of Lightning was enough to benefit Su Zimo for the rest of his life. The Thunder Emperor's teachings contained too much information. Su Zimo couldn't digest and absorb it all in a short time. He could only temporarily memorize it all, imprint it in his mind, and find a suitable opportunity to comprehend and cultivate. Right now, he had more important things to do. He had to think of a way to save the Thunder Emperor. Su Zimo also knew that it was almost impossible for him to break the 10-terminal formation and save the Thunder Emperor. In the past, a perfected immortal expert had tried to break the 10-terminal formation, but he had died inside. He was too weak. Moreover, even if he could break the 10-terminal formation and meet the Thunder Emperor, what could he do? The Thunder Emperor's Tao fruit had shattered, and he had been trapped for hundreds of thousands of years. He might be a lamp without oil. Outside the 10-terminal formation, there were many exalted immortals and even perfected immortals watching. He might not be able to leave the 10-terminal prison alive, let alone bring the Thunder Emperor along. Even so, Su Zimo still had to think of a way to try. If he didn't know the identity of the person in the prison, he might not have risked his life to come up with such an idea. But now that he knew the Thunder Emperor was trapped here, he would feel uneasy if he left without doing anything. Thunder City, City Lord Manor. As time passed, the slaughter in the 10-terminal prison became more and more brutal. More and more earth demons woke up and killed wantonly in the 10-terminal prison. The space for arcane immortals to survive inside also became smaller and smaller. The rankings on the hunter's roll kept changing. Some arcane immortals' names had even reached the top 10, but the next moment, they disappeared from the hunter's roll. This meant that the arcane immortal had died. However, the few that the city lords and exalted immortals thought highly of at the beginning, such as Li Tian and Jian Yu, were still very high on the hunter's roll. Awesome! That Li Tian has already killed more than 300 people. Jian Yu is not bad either. He's right behind. The city lords and exalted immortals were excited and exhilarated. The bloodshed and slaughter in the 10-terminal prison constantly stimulated the nerves of the city lords and exalted immortals. Duke Yuanzhua smiled and ate his immortal fruit leisurely. Then he seemed to think of something and suddenly asked, Jingyue, Su Zimo and Tang Zi have been in the cave for so long. Haven't they come out yet? True immortal Jingyue shook her head with a confused expression. Logically speaking, after such a long time had passed, the battle between the two of them should have ended long ago. However, there was still no movement from the cave. The Mirage Eye looked down and saw that there was no other way out of the cave. This meant that the two of them should still be in the cave. Don't tell me they died together. Lu Yu chuckled. That's possible. True immortal Jingyue murmured and looked at the mirage mirror. Her expression changed and she suddenly said, Your Highness, look. Duke Yuanzhua looked in the direction that true immortal Jingyue was pointing. Through the mirage mirror, he saw a group of more than 100 cultivators in the 10-terminal prison. They were walking toward the cave where Su Zimo and Tang Zi were. After entering the 10-terminal prison, some arcane immortals chose to be alone. Although they were not strong enough, it was convenient for them to move around. They were a smaller target and wouldn't attract too much attention. Some arcane immortals also chose to team up with others. Some formed groups of 3 to 5 people, while others formed dozens or hundreds of people. They formed all kinds of teams. However, there were at most 100 people in these teams. If there were too many people, they would be a big target for the earth demons. Moreover, if there were too many people, they would be in a mess if they were in danger. It would be difficult to command them. True immortal Jingyue smiled and said, Your Highness, the leader of this team is called Flying Eagle. He's currently ranked 8th on the hunting list. He's ruthless and very strong. He's already killed more than 200 people. His team has already eliminated more than 10 squads, and managed to escape from 2 earth beasts. The rest of them have experienced life and death situations, thus they are not weak at all. Duke Yuanzhua nodded slightly. True immortal Jingyue continued, If they enter the cave, we'll know whether the two inside are dead or alive. Translator, Transin Editor, Transin. Chapter 1941. In the cave of the 10 Extremes prison. Su Zimo toyed with the dual dark daggers in his hands as he pondered about the Thunder Emperor. Suddenly, Tang Zi asked, What happened to your body just now? The Thunder Emperor and Su Zimo had been communicating with their spirit consciousnesses the entire time and Tang Zi could not hear them at all. However, she could still sense something strange about Su Zimo. Nothing. Su Zimo replied casually with a calm expression. The matter of the Thunder Emperor was extremely important and there was no way he could casually tell others about it. Tang Zi's gaze shifted to Su Zimo's dual dark daggers. All of a sudden, Tang Zi's pupils constricted slightly before returning to normal. She could not help but ask, Has the wound on your hand healed? She was well aware of how terrifying and powerful the dual dark daggers were. Not only were the daggers sharp, they could also tear open wounds and cause a large amount of life force to be extinguished, causing blood to flow endlessly. Her physique was extremely strong and her regeneration ability was shocking. Even so, just now, her neck had been injured by the dual dark daggers and the wound had only just healed. There was still a trace of blood left. However, the wound on the palm of this person before her was much deeper and more serious than the one on her neck. Yet, it had already healed without any trace of injury. What sort of physique and bloodline did this person have? Su Zimo merely smiled without saying anything. The matter of Qinglian's true body was one of his greatest secrets and could not be exposed. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he suddenly thought of something. He looked at Tang Zi, who was not far away with bright eyes, and asked in a deep voice, How do you know so much about this supreme perfected immortal? Tang Zi was expressionless as she met Su Zimo's gaze without avoiding it. She replied indifferently, I heard about it from other sources as well. Those are all rumors and none of them are true. Actually, Tang Zi was already regretting it in her heart. However, given her personality, She would not reveal any emotions even if she was feeling emotional. Under normal circumstances, she would not casually reveal such secrets to outsiders. Moreover, the two of them did not know each other at all. They were just strangers who met by chance. The reason why she revealed these secrets was because of what the green-robed cultivator had said previously. That kind of heroism and boldness moved her. She could sense that this green-robed cultivator was different from others. He was different from all the people she had met before. "You can leave now." Just as Tang Zi was lost in her thoughts, Su Zimo's voice rang out. Sure enough, this person kept his promise and didn't attack her. However, Tang Zi didn't leave. Her gaze fell on the pair of black daggers in Su Zimo's hands, and she pursed her lips in silence. Su Zimo was slightly startled, but he immediately understood. He couldn't help but laugh and ask, "What? Just now you want to kill me, and now you want this pair of weapons back?" Under Su Zimo's gaze, Tang Zi felt a little embarrassed, and her cheeks unexpectedly turned red. She knew in her heart that her way of thinking was a little too naive, a little too much. However, this person's smile was truly annoying. "I'll keep my promise and let you go. Don't push your luck." Su Zimo moved his hands and the daggers collided gently with a clear sound with sparks flying. He said with a fake smile, "This pair of daggers can be considered as a treasure since they can cut me. They'll belong to me in the future." Although Tang Zi was expressionless, she was about to explode internally. Just now, I thought that this person was different. But now, I know that he's no different from others. He's shameless and insatiable. Tang Zi's gaze turned cold as she was frustrated. The dark twin daggers were personally forged by her father for her and were extremely important to her. All these years, she had carried them with her and had never lost them. To think that they would fall into the hands of an outsider today due to a moment of carelessness. If this was any other time, she would have attacked and killed this person long ago. However, her bloodline was suppressed in absolute Thunder City and she could not unleash her peak combat strength. She knew that even if she attacked, she might not be a match for this person. Instead, she would only embarrass herself. Thinking of this, Tang Zi gritted her teeth and glanced coldly at Su Zimo, then turned and walked toward the entrance of the cave. However, after a few steps, she still felt indignant. With her back facing Su Zimo, she said slowly, "I'll definitely take back this pair of daggers with my own hands." With that, Tang Zi disappeared into the darkness of the cave. Ying Fei and the others came nearby and searched the storage bags of the fallen cultivators to see if they could find anything useful. Primordial Qi was isolated in the 10 Extremes prison. After a great battle, Primordial Qi recovery pills were extremely important. "Boss Ying, there seems to be something in the cave over there." A mystic immortal's expression changed as he stared at the cave not far away and whispered. Ying Fei had already sensed it without the reminder. There was someone in the cave. Ying Fei's lips curled up and he waved his hand coldly. The cultivators behind him understood and took out their weapons and Dharma treasures. They formed a circle around the entrance of the cave and slowly approached. Not long after, a purple figure suddenly appeared at the entrance of the cave. It was Tang Zi. "Boss Ying, it's a lone cultivator." A mystic immortal grinned, eager to fight. For a team like theirs, if they saw a lone cultivator or a group of 3 or 5, they would definitely not let them go. This was because as long as they worked together, there was almost no danger and they would not expend much energy to kill the other party. "It's her." Ying Fei narrowed his eyes. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he recognized Tang Zi's identity. Before entering the 10 Extremes prison, he had heard that Tang Zi was very mysterious and powerful. She was not someone to be trifled with. "Boss Ying, leave this person to me." A short cultivator next to him said in a low voice, "If I kill one more person, I'll have a chance to squeeze into the bottom of the hunting list." Ying Fei said in a low voice, "Go, but be careful. This woman might be a little tricky." "Don't worry, Boss Ying. Don't you trust me?" The short cultivator chuckled and rushed toward Tang Zi. This short cultivator did not even reach the waist of an ordinary person, but his movement technique was shockingly fast. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Tang Zi. He cultivated the Tao of assassination, so he was like a fish in water in the 10 Extremes prison. In this team, the number of people he killed was second only to Ing Fei. Die! The short cultivator shouted. He held a cold, thin sword in his hand and jumped up from the ground, stabbing toward Tang Zi's chest. Tang Zi did not move, as if she did not see anything. Just as the thin sword was about to pierce Tang Zi's chest, the figure of the short cultivator in front of him suddenly dissipated and disappeared. Behind Tang Zi, the short cultivator jumped up and stabbed at the back of Tang Zi's head with the sharp sword in his hand. This was one of his trump cards. The image in front was only condensed by his secret technique. It was enough to pass off as the real thing. His real body was hiding behind and attacking with a fatal blow. With this secret technique, he had never failed in the 10 Extremes prison. Blood splattered in midair. Many cultivators widened their eyes and their expressions froze on their faces. Before the short cultivator's sharp sword could stab down, Tang Zi seemed to have eyes on the back of her head. She swung her hand, and her wide and soft sleeves suddenly folded up. Like an iron rod, she smashed the short cultivator's head into pieces. One move. The short cultivator died on the spot. Bookhouse Reading Website. Chapter 1942. This was the first time Tang Zi had suffered such a setback at the hands of a cultivator of the same level as her. She even lost her personal treasure. Although she didn't show it, there was a fire in her heart that she had nowhere to vent. The short cultivator happened to bump into her. Tang Zi's anger exploded, and she killed him. Although the short cultivator was good at assassination, he was far from being comparable to Tang Zi. Damn it, let's attack together. Kill her. Although the death of the short cultivator shocked the surrounding cultivators, they quickly calmed down and revealed ferocious glints in their eyes. Most of the people who dared to enter the 10 Extremities prison weren't easy to deal with. Moreover, their team had gone through many bloody battles along the way. The remaining people were all ruthless characters. Amidst a series of shouts, a dozen rank 9 mystic immortals attacked at the same time. Treasures, abilities, spells, and secret techniques were all unleashed. They tore through the air and enveloped Tang Zi in an instant. Tang Zi opened her mouth slightly, and an extremely sharp sound burst out from the depths of her throat. It had a terrifying penetrating power. This was a sound domain secret technique that she cultivated, Immortal Whale Sound. This sound domain secret technique was inspired by the immortal whale. When cultivated to the extreme, one would be able to reach the level of great soundlessness. Just now, Tang Zi released the immortal whale sound in the cave. However, as soon as the immortal whale sound burst out, it was suppressed by Su Zimo's dragon roar secret technique. Its full power wasn't unleashed. Now, the dozen mystic immortals who attacked were facing the immortal whale sound head-on. This showed how terrifying this sound domain secret technique was. The rank 9 mystic immortals who rushed to the front curled up and covered their ears with their hands. They looked pained. They lost control of their treasures and fell from the sky. Their abilities and secret techniques were also instantly destroyed. They couldn't pose any threat to Tang Zi. Soon, blood began to seep out from between the fingers of these stage 9 mystic immortals. The immortal whale sound had already penetrated their eardrums. The other rank 9 mystic immortals were a bit further away, but their bodies trembled. Their eyes were glazed and they were a bit dazed. This kind of daze might not be a big deal to others. But for Tang Zi, there were too many things she could do. Tang Zi was expressionless. She waved her purple robe and swept it across the bodies of the rank 9 mystic immortals. His sleeves transformed and instantly became extremely hard, and they were like two sharp and enormous sabers that slashed these 9th-level mysterious immortals into two. Tang Zi didn't stop there. She arrived in front of a few rank 9 mystic immortals and waved her sleeves again. These level 9 mystic immortals had just recovered from their shock when they saw two purple sabers slashing towards them. None of them could react in time. A few large heads flew into the air, their eyes wide open. Although they had already left their necks, their faces were still filled with disbelief. In the blink of an eye, All of these ninth-stage mysterious immortals were slaughtered like vegetables by Tang Zi, and not a single one was spared. This time, not to mention the other cultivators, even Ying Fei was shocked and his expression became nervous. This Tang Zi was more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. Even he might not be able to defeat her. Tang Zi was expressionless. After killing more than a dozen people, the anger in her heart subsided slightly. Even without the twin dark daggers, she could still kill this group of more than 100 people with her own means. Tang Zi was about to attack when she suddenly had a thought. She looked back at the cave behind her and seemed to have thought of something, and the corners of her mouth curled up slightly. Killing these mystic immortals would only benefit the shameless person in the cave. It would be better to let them go to the cave and cause trouble for that shameless person. Actually, Tang Zi knew in her heart. Since she could kill all of these people, the person in the cave could do it as well. However, this would at least annoy that person. Didn't you say you didn't want to fight? Don't you like to hide and run? Let's see where you can hide now that these people have trapped you in the cave. Thinking of this, Tang Zi's mood improved a lot. She ignored the surrounding mystic immortals and sped towards the gap in the crowd. Tang Zi's movement technique was extremely fast. In addition, the surrounding mystic immortals were intimidated by her means and were wary of her. After a moment of hesitation, Tang Zi rushed out. "Boss, should we chase her?" One of the mystic immortals gulped and asked hesitantly. Actually, Flying Eagle also heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Tang Zi leave, but he didn't show it on his face. He only snorted coldly and said, "Don't chase a cornered enemy. I'll spare her life for today. If we meet again, I'll personally take her down." Boss is right. Many of the mystic immortals knew what was going on, but they still agreed. "Let's go take a look at that cave," Flying Eagle said in a low voice. "If there are no problems, let's rest there for a while." Before Tang Zi left, she suddenly turned back to look at the cave. This made Ying Fei feel a bit puzzled. Under Flying Eagle's lead, the group headed towards the cave. City Lord's Manor. Many city lords, exalted immortals, true immortal Mirror Moon, and Duke Yuanzhua all saw the scene just now. "This Tang Zi is not weak," true immortal Mirror Moon said. "The way I see it, she's still holding back. She hasn't used her full strength yet." Thunder City's City Lord said, "Since Tang Zi came out of the cave, it means that Su Zimo is dead." "He's not dead. He's still alive." Duke Yuanzhua suddenly said, "His divine sense on the hunting token hasn't been erased." Lu Yu frowned and said, "That's strange. Tang Zi and Su Zimo have been in the cave for so long. Is there no winner?" Tang Zi was injured in the cave. True immortal Mirror Moon squinted and said, "There's a newly healed wound on her neck." "Lord Prefectural Governor, are you saying that Su Zimo can hurt Tang Zi?" Lu Yu shook his head in disbelief and said, "That's impossible. We all know how strong Tang Zi is. That Su Zimo looks so weak. What can he do?" "That's right. He hasn't killed a single person so far. It's obvious that he's a coward. If Lord Prefectural Governor didn't bring him here, I'm afraid he wouldn't even have the guts to participate in the hunting gathering," another city lord said. Thunder City's City Lord nodded and said, "At this rate, there will be fewer and fewer arcane immortals in the 10 Extremities prison. In the end, even if he fights, he won't be able to enter the hunting list." "Did I make a mistake?" Duke Yuanzhua murmured, deep in thought. "Your Highness, Flying Eagle and the others are about to enter the cave. This time, Su Zimo won't be able to escape. He's dead for sure." "Ha." Lu Yu chuckled. 2K Reading Network. Chapter 1943. Ying Fei led his subordinates into the cave, but after taking a few steps, they stopped. "What's wrong, bossing?" a mystic immortal asked. "Someone's here." Ying Fei's eyes flashed as he stared at the darkness in front of him. He slowly opened his mouth and spat out 2 words. Many cultivators were shocked and immediately became nervous. Their expressions were wary. At this moment, a figure slowly appeared in the darkness in front of them. He walked over slowly and gradually became clearer under everyone's gaze. It was a good-looking man in a green robe. He was slightly thin, and if he was holding a scroll in his hand, he would look no different from a weak scholar. The green-robed cultivator was clean from head to toe. He seemed out of place in the cruel and bloody environment of the 10 Extremes prison. The cultivators had been through many bloody battles and were filled with killing intent. They all looked ferocious. Compared to them, the green-robed man could be considered harmless. Everyone's tense nerves gradually relaxed. Ying Fei was not careless. He knew very well that those who could come to the 10 Extremes prison were not ordinary people. He would not be easily fooled by the green-robed cultivator's appearance. Just one person? Ying Fei raised his eyebrows and asked. Yes. The green-robed cultivator nodded. The cultivators heaved a sigh of relief. Some of the mystic immortals' eyes flashed with killing intent. They could not wait to attack. Ying Fei did not let down his guard. After all, Tang Zi was also alone, but she had killed more than 10 of them and left without a care in the world. Furthermore, Ying Fei thought of something even more profound than that. Tang Zi had just left the cave, and this green-robed cultivator was also in the cave. This person was not dead? How should I address you? Ying Fei asked. I'm Su Zimo, the green-robed cultivator replied. What are you doing in the cave? Ying Fei's eyes were bright as he continued to ask. Su Zimo said, there's killing intent everywhere outside. I found this place by accident and hid here. Since you're all here, I'll leave now and leave this cave to you. In fact, Su Zimo could vaguely guess Tang Zi's intentions. However, he didn't want to fight with these people, so he complied with the wishes of the city lords and exalted immortals. With that, Su Zimo walked out of the cave. This time, it was indeed out of Ying Fei's expectations. The cultivator before him seemed to be rather timid and posed no threat at all. Could it be that he was overthinking things? Some of the Xian immortals couldn't help but look at Ying Fei inquisitively. As long as Ying Fei nodded, they would make their move. Just as Su Zimo was about to pass by the Xian immortals, Ying Fei suddenly shouted, "Wait!" A few Xian immortals moved and blocked in front of Su Zimo. Their faces were unfriendly and their eyes were ferocious. Su Zimo stopped and turned around to look at Ying Fei. He asked with a faint smile, "Is there anything else, fellow Taoist? Take out your hunting order and show it to me." Ying Fei said calmly. Normally, the hunting badge was extremely important in the 10 Extremities prison, as it was related to the final ranking of the hunting list. However, Su Zimo didn't care about the hunting list or the hunting badge. He hesitated for a moment, then took out the hunting badge from his storage pouch. Ying Fei saw clearly that the name written on one side of the hunting badge was indeed Su Zimo. This meant that this person wasn't lying. However, the other side of the hunting badge was blank. In the 10 Extremities prison, as long as a cultivator was killed, the corresponding number would appear on the other side of the hunting badge. Like an eagle, the number displayed on his hunting medallion was 273. This meant that he had killed 273 people with his own hands. This person's hunting badge was blank, which meant that this person hadn't killed a single person since he entered the 10 Extremities prison. Based on what this person had said just now, it could be concluded that this was a cowardly and honest person who was afraid of trouble. Ying Fei was finally relieved. He stared at Su Zimo maliciously and asked with a smile, "You're such a coward. Why did you come to the hunting meet?" Su Zimo smiled and said, "I was brought here by force." Ha! Ying Fei couldn't help but laugh. The surrounding Xian immortals also burst into laughter. Ying Fei's eyes flashed coldly as he nodded slightly. A mystic immortal with a freckled face stood behind Su Zimo. Murderous intent flashed across his face as he suddenly raised his saber and slashed towards Su Zimo's neck. The pockmarked Xian immortal attacked in Su Zimo's blind spot, and there was no warning at all. This slash was almost certain to succeed. The bloody scene of the green-robed man's head being separated from his body appeared in front of everyone's eyes. The long saber cut through the air at an extremely fast speed. However, the slash hit nothing. The pockmarked Xian immortal had used all his strength and couldn't retract his saber in time. He staggered and almost fell to the ground. Ying Fei frowned. Everyone was also surprised. The green-robed man didn't die. No one even noticed how the green-robed man dodged the fatal attack. Someone laughed and said, "Sumatsi, we gave you a chance, but you didn't use it. Let me do it." In the darkness, Su Zimo's face was no longer smiling. His face was completely gloomy. He didn't want to fight with the Xian immortals in the 10 Extremities prison. In his opinion, these Xian immortals were pitiful people who were being manipulated and manipulated. Many of them had no choice. However, this didn't mean that he would continue to tolerate them. "What? You won't let me go?" Su Zimo looked at Ing Fei, who was not far away, and asked slowly. Ing Fei smiled and said, "With your personality, even if you leave here, you won't live for more than half a day. Why don't you stay here and become a number on our hunting order?" "Alright, I won't leave," Su Zimo suddenly said. "A wise man submits to circumstances." Ing Fei clapped and smiled. Su Zimo said calmly, "Now, I'll give you a chance to get out of here." "What did you say?" Ing Fei's expression was strange. He couldn't believe what he had just heard. Just now that the pockmarked Xian immortal had failed, he had been suppressing his anger for a long time. Now, he couldn't hold it in anymore and cursed, "Damn it, you've been hiding in this cave for so long. Do you really think you're so powerful?" Before he finished speaking, the pockmarked Xian immortal attacked again. The pockmarked Xian immortal was enraged. He activated his primordial spirit, formed a lesser theurgy with one hand, and swung his long saber at Su Zimo's head. As soon as he formed his lesser theurgy, he saw a green shadow flash before his eyes. A slender finger was getting closer and closer to him, and he couldn't dodge it at all. So fast. This was the last thought that flashed through the pockmarked Xian immortal's mind. The next moment he felt a pain between his eyebrows. His primordial spirit collapsed, and he lost consciousness. The pockmarked Xian immortal fell to the ground. There was a finger hole between his eyebrows. His primordial spirit had been destroyed, and he was dead. Everyone was in an uproar. Chapter 1944. No one had expected that this weak-looking man in green would suddenly make a move. What was even more terrifying was that this person did not use any secret techniques. He merely extended a finger and pierced through the freckled mystic immortal's skull. Killed with one finger. Kill him. Everyone reacted quickly and roared. Just now, they were all shocked by Tang Zi's methods and were frustrated but had nowhere to vent their anger. No matter how strong this green-robed scholar was, could he compare to that woman just now? Everyone took out their Dharma treasures, activated their immortal arts, and condensed their secret techniques. They attacked one after another, forming a monstrous wave that surged forward. In an instant, the entire cave was filled with light and essence chi was boiling. Su Zimo's expression was calm. His body moved and he passed through the gaps between the many Dharma treasures and divine arts with ease. Su Zimo arrived in front of a stage 9 mystic immortal. He extended his palm and slapped the person's head. Then he floated away without stopping. The stage 9 mystic immortal's eyes were blank and his face was dark. His mind had already been shattered by Su Zimo and his essence spirit was destroyed. He collapsed. Bang! Su Zimo's body flashed again and he crashed into the chest of someone. That mystic immortal could not control his body and was instantly sent flying. His body was still in midair when it exploded into pieces because he could not withstand the huge force. Su Zimo punched a mystic immortal in the chest with a backhand. That mystic immortal was originally wearing a steel armor that was invulnerable. However, the armor was shattered by that punch and a bloody hole appeared in his chest. Even his heart was shattered. Su Zimo twisted and turned in the crowd. His fingers, claws, fists, palms, arms, elbows, shoulders, legs, knees, and feet were all killing weapons. He cultivated the mystic classic of the 12 demon kings of the great wilderness and had been in Tianhuang region for many years. He had long honed a terrifying melee combat technique. After ascending to the upper realm, Su Zimo had fought against the heaven immortals and perfected immortals with the help of the Dragon King's corpse in the abyss of the Dragon Abyss planet. After that battle, Su Zimo integrated many of the dragon's close combat techniques into himself, forming a set of killing techniques suitable for Qinglian's true body. At this moment, Su Zimo, even if he did not use any magical equipment, was already an unstoppable human-shaped weapon with the real body of Qinglian. In just over a dozen breaths of time, over 20 mysterious immortals had perished on the spot. Ying Fei was furious. It was not easy for him to gather so many people in the 10 Absolutes prison. Along the way, even when they were chased by an earth demon, they did not suffer such great losses. Who would have thought that a weak scholar would be able to kill so many of his men in this cave? You're courting death. Ying Fei attacked in a fit of rage. Before entering the 10 Absolutes prison, Ying Fei had already memorized the names of troublesome cultivators like Li Tian and Tang Zi, and tried his best to avoid fighting them. He had never heard of Su Zimo's name before. In his opinion, Su Zimo's strength was limited no matter how strong he was. Ying Fei's speed was extremely fast. He arrived in front of Su Zimo and reached out his hands, grabbing at the top of Su Zimo's head. Ying Fei's hands were emitting a cold glow. He was wearing a pair of gauntlets made of the talons of an eagle with immortal feathers. It was a perfect must-grade magical equipment. Every nail on the gauntlets was as sharp as an eagle's claws, enough to tear apart tigers and leopards. Ying Fei believed that no matter how strong Su Zimo's flesh was, he would not be able to resist his talons. Great timing, I was just about to look for you. Su Zimo smirked. He did not dodge the descending talons, but reached out his hands to meet them. You want to fight against my eagle claws with your flesh and blood? You're overestimating yourself. Ying Fei's eyes shone with a ferocious glint. Bang! The talons collided with Su Zimo's palms and they exerted force at the same time. All of a sudden, Ying Fei's expression changed. The sharp eagle claws could not pierce through Su Zimo's flesh at all. Not only that, the other party's palms were like a pair of iron pincers that released a terrifying power against his talon gauntlets. Frick, frick, frick. His talon gauntlets let out a terrifying sound. Ying Fei's eyes widened. Right in front of him, the talon gauntlets were gradually deformed by Su Zimo's palms. He felt a sharp pain in his fists as well. Snap! A sound that was earth-shattering could be heard. The talon gauntlets were crushed by Su Zimo. Ying Fei's fists exploded into a mist of blood along with the gauntlets. Right now, Qinglian's true body was fearless even against a connate must-grade magical equipment. Ah! Ying Fei screamed in agony. His face was pale as he staggered backward. He did not care about the injuries on his hands and fled out of the cave without hesitation. A pair of huge eagle wings appeared behind Ying Fei's back as he sped toward the cave entrance. His speed was fast, but Su Zimo's movement technique was faster. Earth-traversing golden light, heaven's feet, and ethereal wings were activated at the same time. Almost in the blink of an eye, Su Zimo caught up to Ying Fei and used the Great Chaos Palm to crush his head. Ying Fei was severely injured and could not resist at all. He died on the spot. The remaining dozens of mystic immortals had planned to join forces and continue attacking. However, they were all scared out of their wits when they saw this scene. One had to know that Ying Fei was one of the top experts in the 10 Extremes prison. Otherwise, he would not have been able to lead them. However, Ying Fei could not even last 3 rounds in the hands of this green-robed man. What was even more terrifying was that the talons on Ying Fei's hands were crushed by this person. His strength and methods were beyond the imagination of many cultivators. This person was even more terrifying than Tang Zi. Run! The remaining dozens of mystic immortals fled in panic. At the same time, in the city lord's mansion, Duke Yunzhua suddenly said, Ying Fei is dead. Many city lords and exalted immortals were shocked. As soon as Duke Yunzhua finished speaking, the name Ying Fei on the hunter's list gradually faded until it disappeared. True immortal Mirror Moon smiled and said, Interesting. Not long after, dozens of mystic immortals escaped from the cave. They were still in shock as if they had encountered something extremely terrifying. These mystic immortals did not dare to look back. They scattered and quickly disappeared into the surrounding forest. However, no one else appeared in the cave. That Su Zimo is still alive? The city lord of Absolute Thunder City was shocked. Duke Yuanzhua nodded. He rubbed his chin and stared at the cave thoughtfully. Let's see how long you can hide and how many surprises you have for me. He was getting more and more curious about this Su Zimo. True Immortal Mirror Moon guessed Duke Yuanzhua's thoughts and said in a low voice, Your Highness, should I go down there personally and bring that Su Zimo out? No need. Duke Yuanzhua waved his hand and said, As long as he's still in the 10 Extremes prison, he won't be able to escape from my control. Chapter 1945. In the cave, Su Zimo did not chase after the remaining mystic immortals. Instead, he tidied up the battlefield. There were no treasures in the storage bags of these mystic immortals. Most of them were elixirs for recovering essence chi. Su Zimo collected them casually. Su Zimo also noticed something else. The names of the fallen mystic immortals had disappeared from their divine sense imprints on their hunting tokens. On the blank side of his hunting token, there was a number, 29. This meant that just now, he had killed 29 people. Su Zimo felt that the hunting token was a little strange. However, he could not throw it away casually. That was because once he lost the hunting token in the 10 Extremes prison, the hunting board would sense it and punish him. Su Zimo did not want to attract attention. If he wanted to head to the 10 Extremes formation, he had to avoid the surveillance of the Mirage Eyes as much as possible. If the City Lord and the exalted immortals in the City Lord Manor saw him approaching the 10 Extremes formation, they might be alerted and cause other changes. Su Zimo had not seen the 10 Extremes formation before. Therefore, he could only imagine and could not think of any solution. Now, his first step was to avoid the surveillance of the Mirage Eyes and head to the 10 Extremes formation. Su Zimo came to the entrance of the cave and sensed it slightly. Then he retreated with a serious expression. Before he left the cave, he could already feel the surveillance of the Mirage Eyes. That meant that someone in the City Lord Manor was watching him. I'm being watched. Su Zimo's eyes flickered and he was deep in thought. Although he was not sure about the situation in the City Lord Manor, he could vaguely guess that just now, he had most likely attracted the attention of someone with ulterior motives. Su Zimo was not in a hurry to leave. Instead, he returned to the cave and checked carefully. There was only one entrance to leave this place. Moreover, the mountains in the upper world were hard and the ground was solid. Even with his strength, it was difficult to move them. Even if he could make a hole, it would cause a bigger commotion and he would not be able to avoid the surveillance of the Mirage Eyes. Su Zimo pondered for a long time. Then, he sat down cross-legged and closed his eyes to rest. He had already thought of a solution. However, he still had to wait for a good opportunity. Time passed slowly. The slaughter outside became more and more intense, and the smell of blood became heavier and heavier. Su Zimo sat quietly in the cave, as if he had nothing to do with this matter and had no intention of leaving. As he had expected, apart from Duke Yuanzhua and True Immortal Mirror Moon, the other city lords and immortals had noticed him too. However, as time passed, everyone gradually became impatient. Elsewhere, the battle was in full swing, but here, it was quiet. Everyone could only see a pitch-black hole, and not even a shadow could be seen. After a while, someone couldn't hold on any longer. Many city lords and exalted immortals turned their attention to the other cultivators. The night passed. Even Commandery Prince Yuanzhua was tired. No matter how interested he was in Su Zimo, no matter how curious he was, it was impossible for him to keep staring at him. This person has been hiding in this cave for so long. What is he trying to do? Commandery Prince Yuanzhua snorted. True Immortal Mirror Moon said, Your Highness, we don't have to keep staring at this place. Moreover, if this person leaves the cave, he won't be able to hide from the Mirage Eye. Commandery Prince Yuanzhua nodded. Just as the two of them were conversing, on the ground of the cave, a tiny ant was slowly crawling out and leaving the cave. Naturally, the Mirage Eye was watching this ant. However, in the 10 Extremes prison, there were bloody battles everywhere. Who would pay attention to an ant that was as small as a speck of dust? Even if someone saw it, they wouldn't take it to heart. The ant crawled slowly, and it didn't take long for it to reach the bottom of an ancient tree. Its tiny body hid under a withered leaf. Suddenly, a surge of divine power emanated from the ant's body. Then, the withered leaf bounced away, and the ant disappeared. It was replaced by a butterfly the size of a baby's palm, which flew toward the 10 Extremes formation. The 10 Extremes prison was a space of its own, and there were many living beings. This butterfly was one of the most common types in the 10 Extremes prison. However, both the ant and the butterfly were transformed by Su Zimo using the Great Divine Power, 72 transformations. 36 transformations was a minor divine power. It could only transform into some sand and soil without any signs of life. 72 transformations was a great divine power. It could transform into flowers, trees, birds, and beasts. Back in the primordial battlefield in Tianhuang, Su Zimo had learned many minor divine powers and great divine powers. 36 transformations and 72 transformations were among them. Although Su Zimo was a level 9 mystic immortal, his primordial spirit had already broken through the mystic Aeon realm and reached the earth realm. Even if he didn't use the six-tusked divine elephant's innate divine power, he could still use great divine powers. Of course, out of caution, Su Zimo purposely stayed in the cave for an entire night. When the exalted immortals and the city lord were exhausted, he released the 72 transformations and left as a tiny ant. After leaving the cave, he transformed into a butterfly to increase his speed and fly toward the 10 Extremes formation. All of this was observed by the Mirage Eye. However, no one expected Su Zimo to be able to release the Great Divine Power, 72 transformations, to transform into other living beings and leave the cave right under their noses. Even with the 72 transformations, Su Zimo did not dare to transform into living beings that were too big of a target for fear of attracting attention. Along the way, he avoided some cultivators and earth demons with his spirit perception. In less than half a day, he arrived at his destination. It was a boundless forest with towering ancient trees. However, in the middle of the forest, there was a huge forbidden ground that emanated a terrifying aura. No living beings dared to approach it. At first glance, there seemed to be nothing in the forbidden ground. However, Su Zimo had already seen some traces of an array formation in the forbidden ground. This was the center of the 10 Extremes prison, the 10 Extremes formation. Su Zimo did not dare to approach. He could sense the terrifying aura of the 10 Extremes formation just by pacing around the periphery. Su Zimo was still in his butterfly form as he observed the traces of the 10 Extremes formation with rapt attention. However, after looking at it for an hour, he only felt a splitting headache and had no clue. It was way too complicated. He did not even know where to start with a single immortal formation, let alone a combination of 10 immortal formations. After pondering for a moment, Su Zimo took out a supreme-grade mystic-grade Dharma treasure from his storage bag and tossed it towards the forbidden ground ahead. Above the originally empty forbidden area, a fierce wind suddenly blew, and the wind howled. Under Su Zimo's gaze, a gigantic black wind rose from the ground and devoured the supreme-grade mystic-grade Dharma treasure instantly. In the blink of an eye, the black wind dissipated. As for the supreme-grade mystic-grade Dharma treasure, it was reduced to ashes by the black wind and drifted down. If he was not wrong, the area ahead should be the wind-howling formation. After pondering for a moment, Su Zimo took out an earth-grade Dharma treasure that he picked up in the abyss of the Dragon Abyss planet and tossed it into the wind-howling formation. Another black wind devoured the earth-grade Dharma treasure. In less than a breath, the black wind dissipated and the earth-grade Dharma treasure had already shattered into a pile of dim metal pieces that fell to the ground. Su Zimo was secretly shocked. According to the power of the wind-howling formation, even if his Qinglian's true body entered, she would probably not be able to last a breath before her soul was destroyed and her flesh and blood separated. Book Guest Residence Reading Website. Chapter 1946. Throughout the entire process, various changes occurred within the 10-terminal formation. However, the Mirage Eye in the sky did not seem to notice them. Su Zimo pondered for a moment. The path of breaking the formation was completely out of the question. If he wasted his energy trying to break the 10-terminal formation here, he might not be able to break it even when his lifespan was exhausted. If he could not break the formation, he could only think of a way to force his way in. He did have a treasure on him that might be able to withstand the power of the howling wind formation. The prison's suppressing cauldron. Su Zimo used his consciousness and the prison's suppressing cauldron flew out of his consciousness. It turned into a streak of green light and entered the howling wind formation. The moment the prison's suppressing cauldron entered the howling wind formation, the formation seemed to have sensed something. The formation runes shone brightly and the wind howled with a terrifying sound. Just now, the black wind surged from all directions of the formation, forming a tornado that connected the heavens and the earth, sweeping towards the prison's suppressing cauldron. The howling wind formation seemed to be able to sense the power of the prison's suppressing cauldron as well. That was why it had such a strong reaction. Su Zimo was nervous as he stared at the prison's suppressing cauldron in the middle of the howling wind formation. The black wind howled and instantly engulfed the prison's suppressing cauldron. The wind was as sharp as a knife and it blew against the prison's suppressing cauldron, producing a series of clanging sounds. Su Zimo suddenly sensed that the black wind seemed to want to drag the prison's suppressing cauldron into the depths of the howling wind formation. Not good. Su Zimo was shocked and hurriedly withdrew the prison's suppressing cauldron. Within the howling wind formation, the wind was still howling and was extremely violent. After a while, it gradually calmed down. Su Zimo looked at the prison's suppressing cauldron. The prison's suppressing cauldron did not suffer too much of an impact. The black wind in the howling wind formation did not leave any marks on the prison's suppressing cauldron. According to the Heavenly Wolf, this was the weapon of a great emperor that had once created an era. Even if an emperor weapon was broken, it was still indestructible. However, it was unrealistic for Su Zimo to hide within the prison's suppressing cauldron and barge into the howling wind formation. Although the prison's suppressing cauldron was an emperor weapon, it was not a sealed spatial artifact. The power of the raging wind was all-pervasive. It could flow from the top of the hell-suppressing cauldron into the cauldron, and he would not be able to withstand it. Back then, he was able to seal the opening of the cauldron with the living soil of the 9 heavens. Since the black hole couldn't devour the Genu cauldron, it couldn't devour Su Zimo inside the cauldron. However, it was impossible in the howling wind formation. The living soil of the 9 heaven was a natal magic treasure derived from Qinglian, and as his cultivation increased, the magic treasure's power would increase as well. Inside the wind howl formation, the 9 heaven life soil might not be damaged, but it might not be able to block the power of the gale. The raging wind was violent and pervasive. At that time, it would break through the 9 heaven breathing earth and rush into the cauldron, and he would die without a doubt. Su Zimo thought for a moment and flapped his wings. He flew along the edge of the 10 extremes formation. Not long after, he arrived in front of another area. The aura of this area was completely different from the howling wind formation just now. If he was not wrong, this should be another immortal formation of the 10 extremes formation. The ground of the immortal formation was completely blood-red and emitted a nauseating stench of blood. This time round, Su Zimo did not test it with his weapon. Instead, he tossed in a corpse that he hid in his storage bag. The moment the corpse entered the immortal formation, a stream of blood water appeared from the immortal formation and coiled around the corpse before it landed. Immediately after, the corpse melted into a pool of blood water and scattered on the ground. Not even its bones were left. Su Zimo was secretly speechless. By the looks of it, even if he hid in the bronze square cauldron, he wouldn't be able to defend against the corrosion of the blood water. Furthermore, if the bronze square cauldron entered the formation, there was a high chance that it would attract countless streams of blood water. This should be the blood conversion formation. Su Zimo did not linger nearby and continued moving around the 10 extremes formation. Thereafter, he passed by the Frost Formation, Red Veil Formation, and Golden Light Formation. The 3 immortal formations were extremely powerful and unpredictable. Although the bronze square cauldron could withstand the power of the 3 immortal formations, There was no way it could protect Su Zimo and break through the immortal formations to reach the center of the 10 Extremes formation. Is there really no other way? Su Zimo was a little discouraged. Faced with the absolute power of the 10 Extremes formation that could even kill perfected immortals, he could not help but feel a sense of helplessness. While thinking of a solution, Su Zimo continued moving forward. Before long, he arrived before another immortal formation. The immortal formation was filled with turbid waves and water vapor. If he was not wrong, this should be the flood formation. Su Zimo sighed internally. This time, he did not need to test it out to know that he would not be able to pass through the flood formation with the hell-suppressing cauldron. The power of the flood was even more ferocious than the raging winds. If he hid in the bronze square cauldron, the flood could drown him directly. Just as Su Zimo was about to continue forward, his heart skipped a beat as he recalled something. Something was not right. Normally, if the 10 Extremes formation was not stimulated by external forces, the immortal formation would be relatively calm. The turbid waves just now would not appear. Su Zimo stopped in his tracks hurriedly and looked towards the flood formation. He did indeed find something strange. He could vaguely see a blurry figure in the turbid waves. It was moving forward with difficulty. Someone was trying to break through the formation. He did not expect that there would be someone else in the 10 Extremes prison who would risk their lives to pass through the 10 Extremes formation. Could it be her? Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. A purple figure appeared in his mind. The flood formation was filled with water vapor and rumbling. He could not see the figure inside clearly. That figure was being washed away by the flood, moving against the current step by step. However, the person would not be able to go far before she was pushed back by another wave. The cycle repeated. Su Zimo denied just now's guess. Like him, Tang Zi was only a level 9 mystic immortal. There was no way she could withstand the power of the flood formation. Su Zimo looked at her for a while and gradually found some clues. There seemed to be a light shield around the figure. He did not know what kind of energy it was, but it protected her from the surrounding water. This light shield should be the reason why she could withstand the flood formation and walk more than 100 feet. At this moment, the light shield could no longer withstand the pressure. There were some cracks on it, and it could collapse at any time. Rumble! The turbid waves roared, and a wave came crashing over, slamming into the figure's body. The figure could no longer withstand it. She was pushed back by the wave. She almost fell out of the flood formation. This time, Su Zimo saw it clearly. The figure in the light shield was Tang Zi! Exclamation point! Tang Zi's face was pale. She seemed to have suffered a great blow. She spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, the light shield on her body was full of cracks. It could no longer withstand the next wave of the flood formation. She also realized the danger she was in. Her figure staggered as she hurriedly retreated outside the formation. At this moment, Su Zimo's consciousness moved. He saw 3 figures running toward him from the forest not far away. Chapter 1947. From the looks of it, the 3 of them should be on the same side. The 3 of them split into 3 different directions and headed straight for Tang Zi. Their movement techniques were agile and extremely fast. Tang Zi had just retreated from the flood formation. Before she could catch her breath, the 3 of them had already arrived. The 3 of them are not weak. Su Zimo thought to himself. The 3 of them had grasped the timing of their attacks very well. Tang Zi was severely injured and had just escaped danger. Her 5 senses had yet to recover from the flood formation and she was at her weakest. Furthermore, the 3 of them emitted a nauseating stench from their bodies. It was clear that they were extremely poisonous. 3 flying swords shone with a dark green light. Almost at the same time, they pierced over from the top, left and right. Immobilize! At the same time, the 3 mystic immortals channeled their essence spirits and released their lesser mystic arts, immobilization art. 3 immobilization arts landed on Tang Zi's body. If it was any other mystic immortal at stage 9, they would definitely die under such a siege. Tang Zi was indeed impressive. She had cultivated the Tao of assassination for many years. Although her five senses had yet to recover, her instinct to avoid danger was still there. Without hesitation, Tang Zi opened her mouth slightly and released the immortal whale sound. Exclamation point. She had only released half of the immortal whale sound when her injuries were aggravated and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Even so, the explosion of the immortal whale sound dissipated the mystic power of the immobilization art. At the same time that Tang Zi released the immortal whale sound, she suddenly fell flat on the ground. She darted out. Clang. Two flying swords collided and sparks flew everywhere. However, Tang Zi could not dodge the flying sword that descended from the sky. She also realized this and reached out her hand to grab the flying sword with her bare hands. The sword shone brightly. Su Zimo narrowed his eyes slightly. That flying sword was a perfect-grade Dharma treasure. Blood flashed. The sword pierced through Tang Zi's palm, but it didn't manage to cut it down. The flying sword cut through her flesh and got stuck in her bones, unable to cut any further. Seeing this, Su Zimo was not surprised. He had fought with Tang Zi before. Tang Zi's body and bloodline were very strong. She had obviously cultivated some kind of body refinement method. Furthermore, Su Zimo could faintly sense that Tang Zi's bones seemed to contain some kind of powerful energy. However, it was suppressed, making it difficult for him to release it. The scene before him had confirmed his guess. A perfect-grade flying sword pierced through Tang Zi's flesh, but couldn't hurt her bones. Of course, this flying sword was stained with poison. As long as he could pierce through Tang Zi's flesh, he would succeed. Even in the face of such danger, Tang Zi remained expressionless. It was as if she could not feel the pain or the poison on her sword. The three of them had already closed in. One of them wielded a large spear with both hands. He waved the spear around like a snake that had come to life as it coiled around Tang Zi. The other two also formed a triangular formation and charged over. Scorpion Tail Fist. Sky Spider Hand. The two of them shouted in a low voice. The man with the spear roared as well, "This person is troublesome. Hurry and help." Before he finished his sentence, a commotion could be heard from the forest not far away. Su Zimo furrowed his brows slightly. The three of them had helpers. From the forest far away, a gigantic pitch-black centipede that was more than 100 feet long darted out. Moving its 100 legs, it let out an ear-piercing clang as it scurried towards this place at a shocking speed. There was a person sitting on the pitch-black centipede. Suddenly, a frog croak sounded from another direction. Immediately after, a figure appeared. This person was in a strange posture, like a toad, jumping up and down on the branches and leaves of the dense forest, quickly approaching the battlefield. Venomous snake, spider, scorpion, toad, centipede, that's the gathering of the 5 venoms. Su Zimo sneered internally. The 5 of them were currently on the hunting ranking. If they worked together, even a group of dozens of people might not be able to take them down. But now, the 5 venoms were ganging up on one person. It was unprecedented. Tang Zi's expression was calm. She stretched out her left hand and grabbed the snake-like spear in a flash. She squeezed it hard. Splat. Blood splattered on the spear. Just as the Xian Immortal was brandishing the spear, a venomous snake silently darted out of his sleeve and coiled around the spear, ready to launch a fatal attack at any time. Unfortunately, Tang Zi saw through it immediately. Tang Zi held the spear and crushed the venomous snake. At the same time, she threw the venomous sword in her hand towards the Xian Immortal's face. The two actions were completed almost at the same time. Moreover, the power and speed of Tang Zi's sword was too fast. The two of them were very close, and the Xian Immortal could not dodge at all. Splat. The venomous sword pierced through the Xian Immortal's sea of consciousness and destroyed his primordial spirit. At the same time, the scorpion tail fist with pitch-black mist and the sky spider hand with purple light descended. All of a sudden, Tang Zi's figure disappeared from the spot. In her place was the Xian Immortal whose face had been pierced by her sword just now. Displacement swap. After Tang Zi killed the Xian Immortal, she did not stop. She directly used a minor mystique and switched places with the Xian Immortal. Seeing this scene, Su Zimo could not help but exclaim in his heart. This kind of combat talent seemed to be innate. All of Tang Zi's techniques were one with her. If Tang Zi had been even the slightest bit slower just now, she might have been killed. Bang! The sky spider hand and scorpion tail fist landed on the Xian immortal's body. This Xian immortal was already dead. After being hit by the fists, his entire body instantly rotted and turned into a pool of yellow blood in the blink of an eye. The two of them were shocked when their attacks missed. Tang Zi's figure flashed, and she had already returned to kill the two of them. She had to get rid of these two as soon as possible. Otherwise, when the centipede and toad arrived, the situation she would face would be even more dangerous. Bang, bang, bang. The three of them fought with speed. In the blink of an eye, they had exchanged dozens of blows. Their figures flashed continuously, dazzling the eyes. All of a sudden, the three of them stopped. Then, the two of them collapsed. The life force in their bodies was rapidly fading. They could no longer live. Only Tang Zi stood where she was, still expressionless and panting slightly. If she was not injured, the two of them would have been dead long ago in her peak state. This battle had once again aggravated the injuries in her body. Scorpion, sky spider. Demoness, I'll kill you. Two angry roars came from the side. The remaining two had already arrived. One of them was riding a pitch-black centipede. He actually leaped into the air and pounced towards Tang Zi. Poisonous gas filled the air, and a monstrous demonic aura filled the air. The other person was on all fours on the ground. Suddenly, his lips were tightly shut, and his cheeks bulged like a huge toad. That person opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of sticky and smelly venom. Tang Zi calmed herself down and braced herself, preparing to attack again and kill the remaining two. However, she suddenly felt dizzy. Her limbs were weak and her body swayed. Her consciousness became a little blurry. Am I going to die? Tang Zi sighed in her heart. Chapter 1948. Tang Zi was severely injured, and her bloodline was no longer able to suppress the poison. She could not hold on any longer. She could not muster any strength when she saw the remaining two people lunging at her. Perhaps it was because she had cultivated the Tao of assassination and had honed her mind over the years, but she was still calm even when she was about to die. Of course, many things flashed through her mind at this moment. What a pity! I couldn't break through the immortal formation in the end. This is good too. If I go to the netherworld, will I have a chance to see father and mother? Sigh, if I didn't lose my dual dark daggers, just now, I wouldn't have been hurt by these poisonous creatures. The dual dark daggers are in that person's hands. I hope they won't be covered in dust. Tang Zi bit her lips as a figure flashed through her mind. I'm about to die. Why would my last thought be about that despicable, shameless person? Whoosh! A sharp sound suddenly came from the sky, as if a sharp weapon was flying through the air. Following it, Tang Zi sensed a terrifying murderous intent. Her heart skipped a beat. Oh no! The toad suddenly screamed. Then, the voice came to an abrupt stop. Tang Zi subconsciously raised her head. She saw a white sword chi pierce through the man's forehead and destroy his nascent divinity. On the other side, the same sword chi streaked across the huge pitch-black centipede and disappeared. The black centipede's body was cut in half by the sword chi. Black blood splattered across the sky. The cultivator on the centipede was not spared either. He was killed by the sword chi. Two sword chi had killed two experts of the 10 Extremes prison. Tang Zi was stunned. She was still alive? Tang Zi subconsciously looked at the dense forest not far away, but she did not see any traces of cultivators. She was completely unable to determine where these two streams of sword chi had come from. Who was it? Who would save her in the 10 Extremes prison? Why did that person not appear after attacking? Many thoughts flashed through Tang Zi's mind. Thereafter, she seemed to have realized something and looked up at the mirage eye in the sky. Hurriedly, she pulled herself together and staggered into the dense forest at the side. Tang Zi slapped her storage bag and took out a pitch-black paper umbrella. She opened it. Mysterious runes were engraved on the surface of the umbrella. Tang Zi conjured hand seals and chanted, The runes on the paper umbrella lit up and enveloped her. As for her figure, it gradually faded away, disappearing from the spot along with the pitch-black paper umbrella. On a branch not far away, a butterfly was crouching on the ground, watching the scene unfold before its eyes. If Tang Zi could handle the 5 poisons, he naturally wouldn't interfere. There was a high chance that the fight here would attract attention, and he did not want to expose himself. However, there was no way he could stand by and do nothing when Tang Zi's life was hanging by a thread. The fact that Tang Zi knew so much about the Thunder Emperor and took the risk to barge into the immortal formation meant that she was most likely on the Thunder Emperor's side. If that wasn't the case, there was no need for her to risk her life. Because of that, Su Zimo had to step in and save Tang Zi. Of course, he was worried that he would attract the Mirage Eye's attention after he made his move, so he did not appear and remained in the form of a butterfly. Su Zimo was secretly amazed when he saw Tang Zi open the black umbrella and conceal herself. The black umbrella was clearly not an ordinary item. It did not make Tang Zi disappear. Instead, it allowed her to blend into her surroundings and even fool the Mirage Eye. Actually, Tang Zi was still on the spot. However, Su Zimo could not see her with his vision. Of course, Su Zimo could still roughly determine Tang Zi's location with his spirit perception. If he reverted to his true form, he would be able to see Tang Zi's whereabouts with the candlelight and serene glow. Tang Zi was not in a hurry to leave after concealing herself. She took a spirit pill and rested for a while to stabilize her injuries. It was unknown what bloodline Tang Zi had. After her injuries were stabilized, the poison in her body was no longer a threat. It was slowly forced out of her body. It didn't take long for her face to regain some color. Of course, the injuries from the flood formation would take some time to heal. Tang Zi rose to her feet and headed into the distance. Su Zimo flapped his wings and followed her slowly. Tang Zi took a few turns in the woods with the black umbrella. She soon found a cave and went in. The Mirage Eye won't be able to see this place. Fellow cultivator, you've been following me for a long time. Show yourself, Tang Zi said. A while later, a figure appeared out of nowhere in the cave. The person was wearing a clean blue robe with delicate features. He nodded at her with a smile. It's really you. Tang Zi was not surprised to see Su Zimo. You've guessed it? Su Zimo asked with a smile. Tang Zi fell silent. Apart from Su Zimo, she could not think of anyone else in the 10 Extremes prison who could slay 2 of the 5 venomous beasts silently and follow behind her. I owe you a favor. I'll pay it back in the future. Tang Zi said expressionlessly. Su Zimo smiled and said, There's no need for the future. You can pay it back now. What do you want me to do? Tang Zi asked. Su Zimo said, I'll ask you a few questions. You just have to answer them honestly. That's it? Tang Zi found it hard to believe. Su Zimo did not explain. He went straight to the point and asked, Why did you break into the formation? Tang Zi lowered her head in silence. This matter was related to her privacy, so she couldn't say it. Su Zimo seemed to be able to tell that she was in a difficult position. He did not pursue the matter and quickly changed the topic. How did you withstand the impact of the flood formation? Su Zimo asked. Tang Zi was relieved. As long as it was not an important secret, she would tell him everything. Tang Zi took out a cracked pearl from her interspatial pouch and handed it to Su Zimo. This is the true dragon water-repelling pearl that my master refined using the true dragon Dao fruit. This pearl is as precious as any spirit-channeling Dharma treasure. Unfortunately, it could not withstand the power of the flood formation. Tang Zi said, I don't have the true dragon bloodline. I can't use the full power of this true dragon water-repelling pearl. This treasure was destroyed in my hands. Su Zimo felt that it was a pity as well. Although he did not have the true dragon bloodline, he had the dragon phoenix primordial spirit. With his primordial spirit, the true dragon water-repelling pearl had a high chance of passing through the flood formation. Unfortunately, the pearl had already shattered and been completely destroyed. Thus, this method would no longer work. Chapter 1949. The Mirage Eye doesn't seem to be able to detect the commotion inside the 10-terminal formation? Su Zimo thought for a moment and asked again. Tang Zi nodded and said, the 10-terminal formation isolates the surroundings. Even the Mirage Eye can't see what's going on inside. Su Zimo nodded. If that was the case, he wouldn't have to worry about it anymore. As long as he was trying to break through the formation, he wouldn't be exposed. That being said, he still hadn't figured out a way to break through the formation. Here, take this pair of daggers. Su Zimo took out the dual darkness daggers from his bag of holding and tossed them to Tang Zi. This time, even Tang Zi was stunned. Her most precious personal Dharma treasure was returned so easily? Su Zimo did plan to take the dual darkness daggers for himself. Tang Zi had failed to assassinate him, so it was reasonable for her to be punished. However, he guessed that Tang Zi was most likely here to help the Thunder Emperor, so he couldn't bully her anymore. Besides, the dual darkness daggers might be sharp, but they didn't improve his strength by much. When he took the pair of daggers, he probably just threw them into his storage bag and gradually forgot about them. I'm not used to using these daggers. I'll give them back to you, Su Zimo said calmly. Tang Zi fell silent for a long time before she looked up and said seriously, I owe you 2 favors, and I'll repay them in the future. Su Zimo smiled and waved his hand, then walked out of the cave. Fellow cultivator. Tang Zi suddenly called out to Su Zimo. If you want to avoid the Mirage Eye, why don't you come and hide under my black umbrella? There's no need for that. Rest well. Goodbye. After saying that, Su Zimo's figure suddenly vanished, transforming into a butterfly that fluttered into the forest. 72 transformations. Tang Zi's heart skipped a beat. How many tricks does he have that I don't know? If I'm outside and my bloodline recovers, I won't be a match for him even if I'm at my peak. Why did this person come to the 10 Extremes prison? Tang Zi realized that the more she interacted with Su Zimo, the more she couldn't see through him. This person's body seemed to be shrouded in a layer of fog, unfathomable. Su Zimo left Tang Zi and flew towards the 10-terminal formation. Although Tang Zi had failed, he did not give up. It didn't take long for Su Zimo to return to the flood formation. At this moment, the flood formation had already returned to its calm state. Inside, there was a layer of mist that was constantly changing. Su Zimo did not linger here. He circled around the 10-terminal formation and continued forward. After a while, he arrived in front of another immortal array. The immortal formation was completely red, and it was emitting waves of heat that surged toward Qin Nan. If he was not mistaken, the immortal formation in front of him should be the Raging Flame formation. Raging Flame array? Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he fell into deep thought. The light in his eyes grew even brighter. Maybe I can give it a try on this immortal formation. Su Zimo pondered for a while, and a look of determination flashed across his eyes. He took out the suppressing hell cauldron and threw it into the Raging Flame formation. As soon as the suppressing hell cauldron entered the Raging Flame formation, the immortal formation lit up with flames. The flames seemed to have gone crazy as they surged toward the suppressing hell cauldron, trying to devour this foreign object and burn it to ashes. One of the walls of the suppressing hell cauldron suddenly shone faintly. As soon as the flames reached the suppressing hell cauldron, they were all absorbed by the wall and disappeared. The wall of the cauldron had devoured all the surrounding flames. Seeing this, Su Zimo's eyes lit up. It worked. This wall of the cauldron was where the vermilion bird's holy soul was sleeping. The vermilion bird was of the fire attribute, and it was the holy soul of the flames. All flames had to bow before the vermilion bird's holy soul. Su Zimo moved and charged into the Raging Flame immortal formation. Another foreign object had barged into the formation, and the Raging Flame formation once again produced flames that burned towards Su Zimo. But before these flames could get close to Su Zimo, they were all absorbed by the vermilion bird's holy soul on the wall of the suppressing hell cauldron. Su Zimo was overjoyed. With the help of the vermilion bird's holy soul on the suppressing hell cauldron, even if he did not hide in the cauldron, he would be safe in the Raging Flame formation. The suppressing hell cauldron hung above his head, and the surrounding flames were all absorbed by the wall of the suppressing hell cauldron. Originally, the vermilion bird's holy soul on the wall of the suppressing hell cauldron had fallen into a deep sleep after the battle on the Dragon Abyss planet. But now, with the constant supply of energy from the raging flame formation, the vermilion bird's holy soul showed signs of awakening. Su Zimo took a deep breath, and with the suppressing hell cauldron above his head, he walked toward the depths of the raging flame formation with a determined look. City Governor's Mansion. Just now, there seems to be some movement outside the 10 Extremes prison. The city governor of the Thunder City suddenly said, "The 5 Poisons Xian Immortal died there." True Immortal Mirrormoon shook her head slightly and said, "I'm not sure." Most of his attention was still on the area near the cave Su Zimo had first entered. Duke Yuanzhua looked in the direction of the 10 Extremes prison, and his eyes flashed. "Mirrormoon, will there be any problems with the 10 Extremes formation?" Duke Yuanzhua suddenly asked. True Immortal Mirrormoon smiled and said, "Your Highness, don't worry. The 10 Extremes formation has been set up for hundreds of thousands of years, and there has never been any problems. In the past, a true Immortal Realm Array Grandmaster wanted to break through the formation, but he was trapped inside." Duke Yuanzhua pondered and said, "Back then, this person was like the sun in the sky in the 9 Clouds Immortal Realm. His reputation was unmatched and he had many followers. All these years, he never gave up." True Immortal Mirrormoon said, "His followers have been killed by the Heavenly Punishment King and the Executioner Guards. 10,000 years ago, this person's son also died, killed by the Crown Prince himself. Those motley crew are nothing to be afraid of. It would be best if nothing happened to him." Duke Yuanzhua nodded. True Immortal Mirrormoon smiled and said, "Your Highness, don't forget that this person's fruit of Tao was completely destroyed back then. Even if he manages to escape, he won't be able to do anything. Moreover, a true immortal's lifespan is 500,000 years. Now, this person's lifespan is almost exhausted. An old man with a destroyed fruit of Tao is nothing to be afraid of." Duke Yuanzhua gradually relaxed. However, his attention was still on the 10 Extremes formation from time to time. He didn't know why, but he felt a little nervous, as if a great disaster was about to befall him. "Is there still no movement from that Su Zimo?" Duke Yuanzhua suddenly asked. True Immortal Mirrormoon said, "Your Highness, this person is still hiding in the cave and hasn't come out. I don't know what he's doing inside. This person is really patient." Duke Yuanzhua snorted coldly. At this moment, even True Immortal Mirrormoon didn't want to pay attention to Su Zimo anymore. The many city lords and exalted immortals in the city lord's mansion didn't realize that this insignificant person in their eyes had already broken through the 10 Extremes formation. And if this butterfly flapped its wings, it would most likely cause a great storm in Juele City or even the Great Jin Immortal Kingdom. Chapter 1950. 10 Extremes Prison, Raging Flame Formation. Su Zimo continued to move forward under the protection of the prison-suppressing cauldron. As the prison-suppressing cauldron devoured more and more flames, the vermilion bird Holy Soul's aura grew stronger and more terrifying. Its vitality was flowing, and it could wake up at any time. Although the prison-suppressing cauldron could devour the surrounding flames in the raging flame immortal formation, the temperature in the immortal formation was still beyond imagination. If it weren't for Qinglian's true body, his qi and blood would have dried up long ago. Su Zimo's body was emitting steam. His lips were dry and cracked. There wasn't much sweat left in his body. His vision was a little blurry. Even so, Su Zimo had no intention of backing down. He used his strong will and divine sense to lock his qi and blood. He pulled himself together and walked toward the center of the 10 Extremes formation with a determined look. After an unknown period of time, Su Zimo took a single step forward and the scorching heat in the surroundings disappeared. Did I make it? Su Zimo knelt on the ground, panting heavily. He tried his best to keep his eyes open and look ahead. His blurry vision gradually cleared. In front of him was a tall and sturdy stone pillar. 10 thick chains stretched across the sky. One end was inserted into the 10 immortal formations, while the other end was wrapped around the giant stone pillar. To be more precise, the 10 chains were tightly binding a person to the stone pillar. From afar, the person was shriveled and emaciated. His hair was long and messy, like a pile of withered grass that covered his face. Was this the Thunder Emperor? Su Zimo slowly got up and stared at the figure on the stone pillar in a daze. A trace of sorrow flashed across his heart. The invincible expert in the past had been suppressed here for hundreds of thousands of years for the sake of the people in the lower realm. His skin was dry like rough tree bark. It had lost its luster long ago. His body was so thin that one could even see the bones inside. This former true immortal was no longer as elegant as he was back then. This figure had his head lowered, and his breath was weak. It was hard to tell if he was dead or alive. Who would have thought that the first place of the heaven and earth lists, a supreme true immortal whose name shook the entire 9 heavens immortal realm, would end up in such a miserable state? This was hundreds of thousands of years of endless time. Not to mention the loneliness of the past few years, just the torment and torture of watching the beings of the lower realms kill each other during every hunting meet was enough to completely crush a person. Before this, Su Zimo had always held on to a glimmer of hope. He hoped that perhaps a miracle would happen. He hoped that perhaps the Thunder Emperor could break free from his shackles and return to this world. But the moment he saw the Thunder Emperor, Su Zimo realized that the Thunder Emperor might not be here anymore. The person in front of him was just a skinny old man who was past his prime. Su Zimo took a deep breath and walked towards the stone pillar. No matter what, as long as the Thunder Emperor was still breathing, even if the Thunder Emperor was a cripple, he would do his best to rescue the Thunder Emperor. When he arrived in front of the stone pillar, Su Zimo suddenly trembled and his eyes widened. He saw that there was a chilling long saber on the Thunder Emperor's chest. It pierced through his body and nailed him to the stone pillar, making him unable to move. The blood around the wound on his chest had already dried up, and some black blood clots could be seen. Not only was the Thunder Emperor chained here by 10 chains, he was also nailed there by this long saber for hundreds of thousands of years. Su Zimo could not imagine what kind of pain the Thunder Emperor had to endure. Senior Thunder Emperor, Su Zimo called out softly, his voice trembling. After a long time, the Thunder Emperor seemed to have heard Su Zimo's voice. His head moved slightly and he slowly raised his head. Amidst the messy yellow hair, the Thunder Emperor slowly opened his eyes. It was like the first ray of light since the beginning of the world, cutting through the darkness. There was actually lightning flashing in those eyes. The electric light was berserk, almost surging out. Su Zimo's eyes possessed the 2 divine stones, illumination and nether glow. But the moment he met the Thunder Emperor's eyes, he felt a piercing pain in his eyes. Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. There seemed to be an endless amount of power hidden within those eyes. That was the fury of thunder. In a daze, Su Zimo even had an illusion. It was as though the power contained in those eyes could kill him easily. Just a pair of eyes had such power. One could see the Thunder Emperor's peerless glory back then. Seeing that it was Su Zimo, the Thunder Emperor seemed to be somewhat surprised. The lightning in his eyes gradually calmed down. Even so, those eyes still contained a power that was imposing without being angry, as though it could erupt at any moment. "It's you?" the Thunder Emperor asked. "You actually cleared the 10-terminal formation?" "I had the help of treasures that allowed me to clear the blazing flame formation by chance." When Su Zimo saw that the Thunder Emperor had come to life, he was delighted and said hurriedly. The Thunder Emperor raised his eyes slightly and looked at the bronze tripod above Su Zimo's head before retracting his gaze. Su Zimo bowed deeply to the Thunder Emperor and said in a deep voice, "Senior Thunder Emperor, I am Su Zimo. Thank you for imparting the Void Thunder Manual to me." "Thunder Emperor, Thunder Emperor," the Thunder Emperor murmured softly as though he was lost in his memories. A moment later, he said, "There is no Thunder Emperor in the upper world. My name is Fong Cantillon." It was only at this moment that Su Zimo knew the Thunder Emperor's true name. The Thunder Emperor said, "I'm trapped here and can't hold on for long. Now that I can impart this cultivation technique to you, I have no regrets. Senior, your Tao fruit is truly already. Su Zimo wanted to say something but stopped. Just now, he saw the lightning flashing in the Thunder Emperor's eyes and a glimmer of hope ignited in his heart. Perhaps the Thunder Emperor's Tao fruit was still around. It's shattered. The Thunder Emperor's voice was calm. With a thought of his spirit consciousness, he sent a shattered Tao fruit fragment out of his consciousness and revealed it. When he saw that, Su Zimo finally gave up completely. Back then, Dai Yu had given him a complete Tao fruit of the Tranquil Cloud King's clone. However, that Tao fruit was with Wu Dao's main body. Furthermore, even if there was a complete Tao fruit, it could not help the Thunder Emperor recover his cultivation. A Tao fruit was the essence of a cultivator's lifetime of cultivation. It could be absorbed and refined. However, two completely different Tao fruits could not replace each other. Su Zimo said in a deep voice, "Senior, it's fine even if you don't have a Tao fruit. Since I can reach this place, I can naturally bring you away." The Thunder Emperor shook his head gently. "I have the 10 Absolutes chains coiled around my body. Furthermore, that saber is nailed to my body and I can't escape." That saber was clearly not an ordinary item. Even after hundreds of thousands of years, the saber was still cold and sharp. The 10 extinction chains that the Thunder Emperor spoke of should be the 10 huge and thick chains on his body. "Senior, bear with it. I'll help you pull out that saber." Su Zimo took a deep breath of air and took a step forward, gripping the saber with both hands. "Don't touch that saber." The Thunder Emperor's expression changed as he shouted hurriedly, "Eternal Holy King, Eternal Holy King." Chapter 1951. The moment the Thunder Emperor's voice sounded, it was already too late. Su Zimo's hands were already gripped onto the hilt of his saber. Su Zimo shuddered and his eyes widened. At that moment, countless scenes of slaughter appeared before his eyes. Blood chi filled the air as countless cruel tortures surged into his mind. His head felt like it was about to explode. Su Zimo had never sensed such a terrifying killing aura from a saber. The berserk power of the saber surged into Su Zimo's body and rampaged, destroying life wherever it passed. The surface of Su Zimo's body split open instantly, bursting with clouds of blood mist. Unable to withstand the pain, Su Zimo reared his head and roared into the skies. His expression was menacing and his features were contorted. Boom! Su Zimo's consciousness was in chaos. The creation lotus platform spun continuously and released a green glow. The 81 Qinglian seeds circled around Qinglian's essence spirit, forming a barrier that isolated the invading killing aura. Su Zimo's Qinglian bloodline could no longer be concealed and was released completely. Streams of dense green energy acted on the wounds, releasing a huge amount of vitality to heal the wounds on his body. However, the power of the saber was way too ferocious. Even Qinglian's true body could not defend against it. Her resistance right now was merely delaying it for some time. The Thunder Emperor's eyes were filled with shock. He had been nailed to the stone pillar by the saber for hundreds of thousands of years. No one knew better than him how terrifying the saber was. That was the weapon of the heavenly Punisher King. The true Punisher saber. Every single Punisher guard wielded a Punisher saber. However, those Punisher sabers were merely imitations of this saber and merely resembled it. Even a heavenly immortal would find it difficult to escape unscathed from the Punisher saber before him, let alone a mystic immortal like Su Zimo. However, the young man before him was not killed by the Punisher saber immediately. In the Thunder Emperor's vision, Su Zimo's figure had already turned blurry and was replaced by a green Qinglian that soared into the skies. The stem of the lotus was straight and the leaves were crystalline. Just a gentle sway seemed to be able to shake the world. Creation Qinglian. The Thunder Emperor's eyes shone brightly as he recognized the origin of the Qinglian. Retreat. The Thunder Emperor growled. Although he was trapped and could not move, he released a powerful spirit consciousness that slammed into Su Zimo's chest. Bang! Su Zimo was sent flying and both his hands left the Punisher saber. Exclamation point! Su Zimo spat out a mouthful of blood. The entire process took a long time to describe, but in reality, it only took an instant for the Thunder Emperor to save him. But even in that instant, the executioner's saber had inflicted great damage to him. "Brat, are you crazy?" The Thunder Emperor hollered. "Hurry and leave this place." Clang. Suddenly, the Punisher's saber trembled gently, as though it was excited. "Not good, the weapon spirit of the saber has awakened." The Thunder Emperor's expression was grim. "Bloody hell!" Su Zimo cursed and gripped the Hell Suppression Cauldron. Glaring at the Punisher's saber, he grit his teeth. "At most, I'll use the Hell Suppression Cauldron to devour this broken saber." The Thunder Emperor frowned. "That's the Punisher saber of the Heavenly Punisher King, a Grotto Heaven spirit treasure that contains endless power of punishment and killing. That broken cauldron in your hands won't be able to defend against it. You have the bloodline of the Qinglian. If you can cultivate the body of a grade 12 creation Qinglian, you might have a chance to save me. Hurry and leave." The Thunder Emperor's words were not wrong. However, there was something he did not say. No one knew how long it would take for Su Zimo to cultivate the grade 12 creation Qinglian, and he might not be able to hold on until then. Clang. At this moment, the executioner's saber let out another cry. Suddenly, two phantom sabers burst forth from the saber. One represented punishment and the other killing as they charged towards Su Zimo. "It's over," the Thunder Emperor sighed internally. The pair of weapon spirits within the Punisher saber had been in a deep slumber for hundreds of thousands of years. Now, they were completely awakened. The pair of weapon spirits were born from the Heavenly Punisher King and were extremely ferocious. There was no way they would let Su Zimo leave alive. The two weapon spirits of the Punisher saber slashed towards Su Zimo excitedly with a murderous aura. Su Zimo knew how powerful they were and hurriedly used the Hell Suppression Cauldron to block in front of him. Clang. The two sabers landed on the suppressing Hell Cauldron, producing a sharp, ear-piercing sound. The Thunder Emperor narrowed his gaze slightly. Under normal circumstances, there was no way that broken bronze cauldron could defend against the power of the Punisher saber's weapon spirits. However, just now, the weapon spirit of the Punisher saber was repelled by the bronze cauldron. The Hell Suppression Cauldron sensed the murderous aura and one of the cauldron walls shone brightly. Screech! The cry of a phoenix could be heard and was comparable to the cry of the Punisher saber. Immediately after, a ball of blazing flames surged out from the Hell Suppression Cauldron. The flames burned the surrounding void red. Within the ball of flames, the figure of an immortal bird gradually appeared. The weapon spirit of the bronze cauldron is still alive even though it's broken to this extent? The Thunder Emperor was even more shocked. This immortal bird was not as large as the phoenix race. When it spread its wings, it was only a few feet wide. However, it was bathed in flames and exuded an aura that was superior to all living beings. Its eyes were cold and emotionless. The vermilion bird divine spirit. The Thunder Emperor recognized the origin of this immortal bird at a glance. The bloodline of the vermilion bird divine spirit was even above that of the phoenix. It was the true ancestral god that controlled fire. Hell Suppression Cauldron. This name sounds familiar. I think I've heard of it before. The Thunder Emperor murmured as if he had thought of something. A weapon that could use the vermilion bird divine spirit as its weapon spirit was definitely not nameless. Clang! Screech! At this moment, the three weapon spirits were already engaged in a fierce battle. Saber light filled the air and flames rose. Although the vermilion bird divine spirit was powerful, it was even more ferocious under the power of the two weapon spirits. The vermilion bird divine spirit was completely suppressed. In fact, when Su Zimo heard that the long saber was a Grotto Heaven spiritual treasure, he had already realized that the Hell Suppression Cauldron might not be able to defeat it. It wasn't that the Hell Suppression Cauldron was inferior to the Executioner's saber. It was that the Hell Suppression Cauldron's four walls were only half repaired. Its power was worlds apart from that of a monarch weapon at its peak. Back on the Dragon Abyss planet, the Hell Suppression Cauldron had the help of the Azure Dragon and Vermilion Bird divine spirits, but it could only suppress a pure yang spiritual treasure like the God Fiend's soul summoning banner. Pure Yang spiritual treasures were still in the category of true immortal weapons. However, Grotto Heaven's spiritual treasures were immortal king weapons. With the Hell Suppression Cauldron's current strength, even if the Executioner's saber did not resist, it would not be able to devour it. Back then, the Hell Suppression Cauldron could only devour a Grotto Heaven spiritual treasure because that spiritual treasure had been destroyed by the black hole. Although the Executioner's saber had been in hibernation for hundreds of thousands of years, it was still extremely ferocious and fierce. In just a short while, the Vermilion Bird Divine Spirit was covered in wounds by the two weapon spirits of the Executioner's saber. It was only a matter of time before it was defeated. If the Vermilion Bird Divine Spirit was defeated, it would fall back into hibernation, and Su Zimo would lose his greatest support. Chapter 1952. Su Zimo could only watch helplessly as everything unfolded. There was no way he could interfere in a battle of this level. Su Zimo, pull out the Executioner's blade. At this moment, the Thunder Emperor's voice sounded out. It was very calm, but behind this calmness, there was an inexplicable strength. Just now, Su Zimo tried to pull out the Executioner's blade. But after hearing the Thunder Emperor's words, he did not hesitate. He took a deep breath, stepped forward, and grabbed the Executioner's blade. In mid-air, the two Executioner Saber's weapon spirits also noticed this scene and suddenly became extremely nervous. They actually abandoned the Vermilion Bird Saint's soul that was about to shatter and turned their sabers to charge at Su Zimo. Su Zimo felt the killing intent behind him and was overjoyed. He realized that the Executioner's blade was most likely the key. Stop them! Su Zimo shouted. The Vermilion Bird's holy soul roared and flames burst out from its body. It charged at the two Executioner's blade. It would not be able to hold on for long. It chose to fight with its life on the line. Its goal was to stall for time. The moment the three weapon spirits collided, Su Zimo's hands grabbed the Executioner's blade again. The power of punishment and slaughter appeared in his mind and rushed into his body. But because the weapon spirits were not around, the power was much weaker. Enduring the pain, Su Zimo's eyes widened as he roared. His blood chi surged as he gripped the hilt of the Punisher's saber and yanked it outwards. The speed at which the Executioner's blade was pulled out was extremely slow. Su Zimo could even hear the creaking sound of the blade cutting through the Thunder Emperor's bones. The Thunder Emperor's face did not change at all. It was as if he could not feel the pain. But the lightning in his eyes burned brighter and brighter. Boom! The outcome of the artifact spirit battle had already been decided. The Vermilion Bird's holy soul dissipated and turned into a streak of red light. It entered the hell-suppressing cauldron and fell into a deep sleep. As for the two weapon spirits of the Punisher saber, although they were slightly dimmed from the impact as well, they were still in perfect condition and charged towards Su Zimo. Finally, Su Zimo pulled out the Executioner's blade. However, this short process had nearly exhausted all of his strength. Qinglian's real body was also severely injured. Su Zimo could not hold on any longer and fell to the ground. The killing intent behind him was biting cold, and he didn't even have the strength to turn around. He could only gasp for breath, and his expression was dispirited as he remained motionless. Just as the two weapon spirits were about to slice Su Zimo into two, a cold harumph sounded and the void trembled. The two weapon spirits' holy soul weapons was the Thunder Emperor's voice. Instinctively, Su Zimo looked up. The ghastly wound on the Thunder Emperor's chest was healing slowly. The Thunder Emperor's aura grew stronger as well. The lightning in his eyes burned brighter and contained endless might. The two weapon spirits seemed wary and hesitant. However, after a slight pause, the two weapon spirits were enraged and slashed at Su Zimo. All of a sudden, two streaks of lightning shot out of the Thunder Emperor's eyes. At this moment, the entire world seemed to be filled with this lightning. Boom! The two streaks of lightning struck the two weapon spirits of the Executioner's blade with a deafening sound. Lightning flashed and crackled on the two artifact spirits' bodies. The two weapon spirits seemed to be in immense pain as they trembled and wailed in agony. Su Zimo was dumbfounded. Just now, the two weapon spirits had suppressed the vermilion bird's holy soul and were completely fine. But now, they were stunned by the Thunder Emperor's gaze. Could it be? Su Zimo's eyes lit up when he thought of a possibility. Right then, as though they realized something, the two weapon spirits no longer chased after Su Zimo. Instead, they turned around and returned to the executioner's saber. Clang! The saber trembled slightly and turned into a streak of light that tore through the firmaments and sped into the distance. That was a numinous treasure. It possessed sentience and spirit consciousness. In fact, it even knew how to judge the situation and avoid danger. The Thunder Emperor did not make a move as he watched the executioner's saber leave. His strength had not recovered fully, and he could not keep that grotto heaven numinous treasure. The Thunder Emperor's spirit consciousness moved, and the initially shattered Tao fruit in front of him turned into streaks of lightning that entered Su Zimo's body like raindrops. Ah! Su Zimo cried out in pain, and his body curled up uncontrollably as he shuddered. Streaks of lightning flashed on his body and entered his flesh, bones and organs through his pores. Su Zimo had cultivated the Void Thunder Manual to begin with and was not repulsed by the power of the Tao fruit. Just now, he drew his saber and there was still quite a bit of the power of punishment left in his body. But now, those powers were purged by the power of thunder that surged in. A moment later, when the pain gradually dissipated, Su Zimo was shocked to discover that his injuries were more than half healed. Every single move he made seemed to be even stronger than before. Senior, Su Zimo stood up from the ground with a thud. His face was flushed and he could move freely. I've sealed those Tao fruit fragments into your body temporarily with my dermic powers, the Thunder Emperor said. Given your current cultivation, it's difficult for you to absorb and refine them completely. They might be able to help you in the future. Thank you, Senior. Su Zimo bowed hurriedly in gratitude. Those were the Tao fruits of a supreme true immortal. Even though it was already broken into pieces, the remaining fragments still contained unimaginable power. First published on the Chinese website Crack. At that moment, a strange sound came from the Thunder Emperor's body. Su Zimo focused his gaze. One of the chains on the Thunder Emperor's body had broken. The lightning in the Thunder Emperor's eyes grew stronger as his thin and withered body shuddered slightly once again. Crack! Another crisp sound was heard as the second chain broke. The Thunder Emperor had broken the chains of 10 extremes with his own strength. The power of the chains of 10 extremes came from the 10 extremes prison. The 10 extremes prison was so terrifying that it could even kill a true immortal expert. What did it mean for the Thunder Emperor to break the chains himself? The Thunder Emperor's hands were freed after 2 of the chains broke. This pair of bony hands grabbed onto the other 2 chains and squeezed with all their might. Crack! The 2 chains broke at the same time. The Thunder Emperor smiled as if he could see the confusion in Su Zimo's eyes. If it's just the 10 extremes prison, the chains of 10 extremes would not be able to trap me. The only thing that has trapped me here for all these years is the executioner's saber. Helping me remove the saber is the same as removing the greatest seal on my body. Bang! As soon as the Thunder Emperor finished his sentence, a loud explosion took place in the surroundings. The remaining 6 chains all broke at the same time. The 10 extremes formation shuddered violently as the eyes of the formation shattered. A huge storm took place in the immortal formation, resulting in utter chaos. The Thunder Emperor's aura rose rapidly, as if a terrifying deity was awakening and returning to life. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.